All right, so welcome to Business Builder Mastery. I'm super excited for you. You're going to find a ton of value in this course. I jam-packed it. I spent the last 2 years really just focusing on not only just the business. Obviously, I've been in the wholesaling business for about 4 years as I'm making this video. And for the past couple years, my whole goal was just to build a team, to actually turn this thing into a business where I don't have to constantly be worrying about, hey, what's going to happen when that lead comes in? Hey, how do I keep up with title? Hey, how do I scale my marketing? My goal was to get the right people in the right seats and ultimately create a process that could deliver me revenue month in and month out and ultimately allow me to live the lifestyle I really wanted to live. So that's the whole purpose of this course. And, you've got to understand, number one, that there are a few key factors, that you're going to need to keep in mind as you're thinking about turning your business into your real estate investing business into a real business with real processes. Maybe you're building a team. And you'll get different things depending on, where you want to go and where you're currently at in your business through each module. Maybe right now you're not quite ready to bring on an employee, but maybe you're ready to systemize your marketing and make sure your marketing is sent out on a consistent basis that's, systemized and predictable so that ultimately you can scale and know how much revenue you're going to have coming in for that month and the months following. So just keep that in mind no matter where you're at right now. I don't know what your specific situation looks like, but either way, we're going to work to get you ultimately to totally 100% understand the game plan and the outline to turning this real estate investing thing into an actual business, because it's fun to get your first deal. It's fun to get your second and third deal, but until you systemize, you're always going to be missing something in your business. You're always going to feel like you're lacking something or you're just a little frustrated. And until you actually make it and turn it into a real business, you will feel that. So just keep all that in mind. And one thing I really wanted to stress in this intro video is, guys, remember, we've got to stay consistent, we've got to stay positive, and we've got to work hard to get what we want. Most of us, we're going to go through this course, a lot of people. Most of us, we are going to actually make this happen, okay? But a lot of people out in the world would watch this course and sit there and say, well, I'm going to take action, okay? And then 3 months down the line, they haven't even done one little thing from the course. They haven't taken one piece of action. And then, 6 months down the road, they're sitting there saying, well, I did not build my business because it just didn't work. But the truth is you look at what their actual action items that they did for the previous 6 months had been, really they just weren't doing what they needed to do and taking the action they needed to take to ultimately be successful. So I know it sounds cliche. I know in this group we're going to have a lot of high-level people who are running through this course. But you just want to understand that you need to absolutely be committed to being consistent with your marketing, being consistent with your follow-up, being consistent with the training of your employees, being consistent with everything you need to ultimately make this work. Because if you don't work, this system's not going to work, okay? And so that's just one thing I wanted to get out of the way. If you guys are new, if you're new to the business and you just wanted to get started off the ground with understanding, you haven't closed your first deal, but you want to understand how to build out a team so you can, move forward in the fastest way possible and skip that learning curve. That's awesome. Make sure, you got with this course, along with this, my virtual wholesaling academy, which teaches step-by-step how to go out there and do your first deal and ultimately scale up to 50 to 100 grand your first year. Go watch that first and then move on to this. And then, this will help you kind of connect the dots and kind of be prepared to scale your business. Now, for those of you guys who are watching, maybe you're already doing 1-2 deals a month. Maybe you're already doing 10 deals a month. That's awesome. I guarantee there's going to be things in this course that are going to help you in your business, because there's certain things that are my strengths. There's probably going to be certain things that are your strengths as well. So I'm not somebody who's doing multiple 7 figures a year, but I'm definitely somebody who has a great team who I'm proud of, and I built it all virtually, and it's a minimum overhead model. So you guys are going to be getting a lot of value out of this, and I can't wait. If you guys have not scheduled your welcome call, it's just a one-on-one consultation call with me. Go ahead and email me at admin@theyoungrei.com, admin@theyoungrei.com. Send me an email and put the subject being a one-on-one consultation call scheduling, because obviously with this you get that one-on-one consultation call so that I can help you and make sure that you're on the right track as you ultimately scale out your business and turn it into a real business. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching this first lesson. Let's get into it. Let's get excited. Let's get ready, because we are going to make some true waves in the industry, and I can't wait to see your success. So I will see you guys in the next lesson. All right, so the dream team structure for a multiple six-figure, even seven-figure real estate investing business. So this is currently what my team structure looks like. It is very, very simple. However, it is extremely effective. One thing you guys have got to realize is that some people see these guys who maybe they do multiple seven figures and they have like 25 employees. The truth is those guys are operating on a very thin profit margin, okay? Maybe 20, 30%. What I'm showing you today is built for a profit margin of 40 to 65, 70% profit margin, depending on what market you're in. So that means if you're going to bring in $500,000 for the year and you're on, let's say, a 60% profit margin, your net profit on that would be $300,000, right? And so, at the bare minimum, if you're in maybe a super competitive market, we'd shoot to make 40% profit margin. If you're in just a normal market, in fact, and maybe even if you just have your systems down, my goal is always at least 60 to 70% profit margin. So just keep that in mind as you look at this. And a lot of my mentors who do 30, 40, 50 deals a month, they still only have a couple more people than this, because this is enough people really for me. We just brought on Maria. She's new. Just George and Natalia and our VA cold callers was enough for me to get up to $500,000 a year. So now adding another acquisition should get us to $1 million a year this year. So now starts out with a CEO. Now I am also a COO role. So a lot of you guys are familiar with the term CEO. What a COO is a chief operating officer. That's somebody who runs the day-to-day. So I am really the CEO/COO. I've not hired that position out, so I'm dealing with the day-to-day, scheduling the marketing, making sure, and by day-to-day, what I really mean is just, staying in contact with them. I'm not working a lot, maybe a couple hours a day in the real estate business, just touching base with them. My team, and making sure everything's on looking good for closings and with new leads and stuff like that. And then I'm also the one who oversees our marketing campaigns. So that's where I'm at. I'm the CEO here. Now we come down to the deal coordinator, which depending on your personality type, the deal coordinator is going to be a great hire, which by the way, the purpose of this video is really just to give you a 30,000 foot view of the team. We're obviously going to get into the actual hiring and management process, what we pay them, all that kind of stuff in additional lessons. This is a 30,000 foot view of the dream team structure. So just understand that we'll be getting into the nitty gritty of each position. So deal coordinator is very, very important, especially if you're more of a sales personality like I am. I don't like to have to deal with a bunch of paperwork and going back and forth with the title company. I like to ink a deal with the seller and sell the deal via assignment, or flip the deal, or whatever we're doing on that deal. I don't like to deal with the in-between, all that nitty-gritty paperwork. So the deal coordinator really serves that purpose. Again, we'll get into her specific her specific role in the company, but that's what she does for us. She also schedules inspections, because obviously you guys know we are all virtual. So she schedules inspections with our inspector as well as the seller, and she will handle also any realtor referrals. So and I'll go over video on referring leads to realtors. We actually sell our leads to realtors. Because legally, if you're not a realtor, you can't take a commission split. Right, so let's say they get a deal and they close it and they make a $10,000 commission. It's not legal for them to give you half of that or whatever. Some people still do it. I'm not comfortable with doing things that are against regulation, so I pay them. They pay me per lead up front when we provide the lead. So she handles that as well. Acquisition manager. So basically, I should have marked here, we have really one acquisition manager, George, and Maria is our leads manager. And I'll break down the difference in a second. So acquisition manager, their job, and I'll go over the sales process in another lesson, but their job is basically to handle new leads, to make our offer, and to get the deal under contract. That is their sole role in the company. They're a sales role. They're a fighter. They're somebody who's going to get in there, make sure that the seller's problem is solved, make sure that they're happy, while also ensuring that we get it at a good price and that we're going to be able to make money on the deal. So that is their role. And a lot of you guys, probably a majority of your work is spent in the acquisitions position. And the thing that sucks is, as a solopreneur, is that you're able to hustle as an acquisitions, but then once you get a couple deals under contract, now you have to do that deal coordinator role. And by the way, I didn't mention, but she also sends out our email blast to our buyers, and we'll talk to them. Ultimately, I'm the one who has the final say on what we're going to assign that deal for. But she will prepare those email blasts and take incoming phone calls from buyers as well. So you can't play that role and the acquisitions role at once and still be consistently doing both roles well. And a lot of you guys, maybe you're watching this video and you're saying, well, nobody can ever do acquisitions as good as I can. That's baloney, okay? That is a solopreneur absolute trap. That's a crock of bull, if you know what I'm trying to say. You're lying to yourself. The truth is that you doing the acquisition manager as 30% of your time, because you still have to do the CEO and COO role, as in fulfill marketing and stuff. You still have to fulfill the lead manager role, as in taking inbound phone calls from marketing and setting appointments and doing follow-up and stuff like that. You can't do all that and be effectively doing the acquisition manager position. So you got to keep that in mind. You might be very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I'm very good at acquisitions. I know for a fact, if I was just 100% full-time in acquisitions, I would destroy any potential employee that I could ever hire. Okay, I know that for a fact, because being in acquisitions was one of my biggest gifts, in the business. That was what I was the best at. But yes, that's true. However, if I'm also running the company, I'm never going to be as effective. So now George kicks my butt of what I could be doing in acquisitions, because I wouldn't be full-time in that position. I'd still have to do the marketing, deal coordination, plus I want to live my life. And ultimately, for a lot of us watching this video, our goal is to get more time in our lives and to not live by the business so much and to not be controlled by the business. I don't want to have to be showering and get a seller call and go answer. You know what I mean? So that's the purpose of hiring out. Okay, so leads manager, her role is basically to take inbound phone calls from direct mail campaigns, PPC, stuff like that, and log those leads and ensure that all follow-up is done in a timely manner on our leads. And so that's her job. And she typically has closed sellers, so as in got contracts signed for us. She's closed deals, but she typically is teeing those leads up to our acquisition manager. And eventually we'll move her up to that position as well. So yeah. Now, cold callers, a lot of you guys know I'm big on cold calling. It's a great source of leads. Obviously, you never want to rely on one marketing stream, so we'll be getting into scaling out other marketing streams. I've been big on PPC recently, and we'll go over all of that. But cold callers are great, so I put them there. That is, a physical position that we've had to hire, and obviously, there's a full couple modules dedicated to scaling out your cold calling business in the course. So you'll find that as well. So we'll be going over how to hire every position, their roles, all that kind of stuff in future lessons. This was just an overview of the general team structure of how to actually turn this thing into a business. And once you have this model, you should be good working just a couple hours a day. Unless you're a workaholic, you can definitely knock down 3, 5, 10 deals a month with this exact model. Last year we were average around 5 deals a month with just George. So with Maria, we're so far we're shooting to double our revenue this year. So thank you guys for watching this lesson, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, so this is a very, very important lesson, and there's multiple other, there's 5 total keys that I've marked here, and I've whited them out just for, as we move on to 2, you'll be able to see 2 and 3 and 4, just to keep you focused on the one we're currently talking about. So the first key to scaling your real estate investing business is to embrace your role. And now a lot of us, we don't really understand this, okay? We hear it. You might have been to a few events. Maybe you've watched a few videos and people say, well, figure out what your gift is and do that, okay? But the truth is a lot of us just aren't embracing our role. And when I say that, what I mean is you've got to know yourself, okay? If you are, currently filling every hat in your company, ultimately you've got to take some tabs. You've got to sit down. You've got to realize, hey, I really love acquisitions. I love being on the phone. I love talking to sellers. I love solving their problems, making a difference. But I absolutely hate dealing with the title company, preparing all the email blasts, preparing all the marketing, all that kind of stuff. Then, you need to realize that your first hire should not be an acquisition manager, because you're just going to underserve your team. You're going to be frustrated. I'm going to be frustrated because I'm going to be hearing about it from you in the Facebook group, and just everybody is going to be upset. So it's very important that you embrace your role and you figure out what you really like. And if you have employees already, I'm sure a couple of you guys listening to this already have employees. They are looking at you to be a leader. They're looking at you to be somebody who leads from the front of the pack, okay? You're the CEO for a reason. Some of you guys, and I'm guilty of it too, we undermanage, okay? I'm not saying to micromanage and get in all their business, but you don't realize that your team wants to hear from you. They want to do trainings with you once a week. They want to improve themselves. And a lot of us, we don't really embrace that. We're CEOs, but maybe we aren't doing training enough. Maybe we're not encouraging them enough. Maybe we're not asking them at our Monday morning meeting how their weekend was enough. There's so much that we can do as a CEO to help our team that we're maybe not really doing. Maybe you're fulfilling your deal coordination in your company and you have an acquisition manager, right? Virtual acquisitions. But the problem is you're just not sending contracts on time. You're not getting with the title company in time. You're not talking to enough buyers, and then your acquisition manager gets upset because, you're the owner and you're supposed to be the one who's carrying this team and fulfilling your role as the owner and as the dispositions deal coordinator. And so they're going to make less money because you're not fulfilling and embracing your role as a deal coordinator in your own company correctly. So it's very important to just understand that and just realize where you're at in the organization chart and just start there, realize what you like. And maybe some of you guys are watching this right now and you're just like, man, I have no clue how to even start and hire a team and do any of that. This is just crazy. Well, first step would be to watch all these videos, but get your first few deals under your belt. This is if you guys haven't closed, which majority of people watching this, you've already closed multiple deals and you're doing deals every month most likely. But if you haven't, don't get overwhelmed here. Embrace your role in your company, which is we're building all hats right now. I'm just going to take it step by step. I'm going to do marketing, but fulfill the acquisition role. Then as we get contracts, I'm going to fulfill the disposition and deal coordinator role. And then I'm going to, as I get capital, hire over. And I'll make another video on exactly when I think you should hire, my opinion on that. But as far as keys to scaling, it's just very important for those of you guys who maybe already have a team, maybe you're starting out, just to embrace what you like. And I'll talk about how to figure out what your first hire is, but the first step of that is realizing which role you enjoy the most and hiring out the other roles. So for example, again, if you like acquisitions but you hate paperwork, hire out a deal coordinator, okay? So second one, become a mad scientist. Oops, I don't really want to highlight that. I wanted to turn that black. There we go. Become a mad scientist. So what do I mean by this? Okay, a lot of us, we're afraid to test different things. Okay, it's not always going to work on the first go around. Things are not always going to work like you plan them to work. Marketing campaigns are not always going to give you the return you want to get. The key to everything is not getting discouraged because maybe you've had extreme luck. Maybe you just had a $300,000 month. Okay. But maybe you also just had a month where you spent money on marketing and you didn't get quite the return you expected to get. You can't get discouraged over that. You've got to be a mad scientist. Watch what you learn. Watch what you learn in this course. Go out there, do some networking and test everything. Constantly be testing. If you're doing direct mail, test out your mail piece. Split test. See which one works best to which list. If you're mailing out 2,000 mail pieces, send out a postcard to one half and a letter to the other half. See how many deals you get, how many leads you get. Track everything. That's very important. And along with this, I should say, track KPIs so that you know what works, okay? And we'll have a whole video, a few videos actually, on KPIs and ensuring you're tracking everything correctly. But when you're being a mad scientist and you're testing different things, you really got to know your numbers. You want to know how many leads you got from the campaign, how many contracts did you get, and how much revenue, right? And ultimately be able to see if it actually worked. So you can't be afraid of failure as you're scaling, and you ultimately just have to try different things. And as you try different things, you'll find things that work really, really well for you. And coincidentally, probably a lot of it's also going to work for me, or maybe some of it won't work for me. That's the cool thing about your own business, is not everything is going to work the same for somebody else. And you'll have an actual, real business, that other people can't just go out there and copy. So you want to be a mad scientist. You want to test things out and go from there. The third thing is act with consistency, okay? Oops, I keep doing the little highlight. Act with consistency. Now, I went over this in the welcome video, and it's pretty simple, right? But a lot of us just don't understand this, okay? You're going to get to the point where, maybe in your first month, your acquisition manager, he only signs 1 or 2 deals, but you expected him to get 5 deals, okay? That doesn't mean you're going to slow down your marketing or get upset with him and fire him. No, you're going to act with consistency. You're going to say, okay, you know what? I don't think I got you enough leads, which we'll go over KPIs and how to kind of figure that out in another lesson. But, I don't think I got him enough leads this month. Let me, continue on my plan. And I didn't quite hit the returns I wanted to hit this month. But as long as I stay consistent, next month could be huge. Maybe this month you spend 10 grand on marketing, and maybe you only close $30,000 in deals. But what you don't realize is the next month you're like, man, maybe I should just go back to spending 2 or 3 grand a month. But the next month, if you spend another 10 grand, maybe you make 130 or 140,000. Those are real numbers in this business. And a lot of gurus that you're watching their education and their courses, a lot of them, number one, they probably don't really do the business. Number two, they're probably, if they do the business, they're probably not mentioning, you're going to have months like that. Some months you might spend 5 grand and only make 20, but then the next month you spend another 5 grand and you make 80. That's just how the business goes. But you would never have those big months if you didn't act with consistency, right? We all have our small months. Typically in the wholesaling business, you probably really just your sales process was off. Maybe, something just was off that month if you actually don't make any money. But on the worst months, I'm typically still making 3x my marketing expense, okay? So you've got to keep that in mind. If you're spending 10 grand, my goal for you would be to make at least 20 grand or 30 grand a month. But if you are, but then the next month you could spend 10 grand and make 150. That's how it goes for me. You have big swings. And that's just part of it being a business owner, but you'd never be able to, again, enjoy those big months without consistency. Okay. So super important. Okay. Next thing is be ethical. All right. And this sounds self-explanatory, but the truth is a lot of people, they just don't understand this. Okay. My whole philosophy in this business is not to kick a seller in the teeth when they're down. Okay. If they owe on taxes, they're behind on their mortgage. We're not going to try to, kick them in the teeth, get it for the absolute lowest possible price, and just make them feel like they got screwed in the deal. On a buyer, if we agree to assign that deal to him, we're not going to go around him and try to get another offer when we've already committed to him. We want to be ethical and be honest and build a good reputation for ourselves. And if nothing else, then we just want to feel good and be able to sleep good at night, right? Don't be one of those people who goes out there and just destroys people in their business. You want to be somebody who's actively out there to deliver value to people. And that's how we make our money in this business, is to help people and make a difference in our communities, in the virtual communities that we're working in, and just overall build a good name for yourself. So it's very important to me. And the next thing is follow what works. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are guilty of this. I certainly am, okay? Let's say you had a really big month and there was a couple of marketing streams, or really one marketing stream maybe, that really killed it for you. The next month, for some reason, instead of scaling that, you try 5 other marketing streams, okay? And, that's a problem. When you figure out what works, you've got to follow that, all right? I'm going to show you what works for me, obviously, but you're going to see patterns in your business where you're like, wow, that got me a great result. Double down on what works. A lot of us, will kill it in a certain market, doing a certain marketing stream. And then the next month, we're back into a different market, trying a different marketing stream, trying to see if we can get even better results. But no, if you get great results doing something, follow what works and double down. It's super, super simple. And, but it's totally important for you to realize as you're growing out your business is to follow what works. And again, you look at this, you might think I'm just talking about follow what I show you works in the course. But again, when you're being a mad scientist, certain things are going to come out and show you, like this works the best. So you've got to follow what is actively working in your business and, really make an effort to double down on that. So keys to scaling, super big, important stuff. Again, we're going to be getting into everything that we talked about, as far as KPIs, as far as all that kind of stuff, hiring out your roles, that stuff, figuring out what you really like. All that we'll be talking about in the course. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will see you guys in the next one. All right, so by this time, I've gone over my team structure. I've gone over all that stuff. You're probably wondering, for those of you guys who now maybe you haven't hired anybody, some of you guys probably have employees, but a good percentage of you guys are probably wondering, now, when do I start hiring? And if I already have employees, when do I hire my next one? Okay, that's something that's on the top of everybody's, of everybody's mind who's building a business. And for me, there's a few rules I like to stick to. So the first is that typically I like to see at least 6 months of expenses in the bank prior to hiring. Reason for that being is, you don't want to be stressed out to get deals. You don't want somebody else, they're relying on that paycheck from you to feed their families. And ultimately, you don't want to feel uncomfortable about your ability to pay them. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of small businesses out in the world, they are going to month. They're living month to month. They require, the revenue from this month to pay their employees. And whether you think that's a good thing or not, it is happening. So maybe I'm being a little bit conservative. But for me, I like to see at least, for me, 12 months. But I'd say a minimum of 6 months of expenses in the bank. That means that if I know I'm going to hire an acquisition manager, and I want to spend around $3,000 to $5,000 a month on marketing to keep the lead flow solid for him or her, I would want to at least have, and he's gonna him or her might add, I'll talk about how I pay him, but about $2,000 in just base pay, and of course you can hire them commission only, and we'll talk about that. But let's say for me, I'm gonna spend $3,000 a month on marketing and pay them a base of $2,000 per month. So that's $5,000 per month. Right? And so 5 times 6 would equal $30,000 cash in the bank. That's the minimum I would want to see in the bank in order to make that hire and feel comfortable about it. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I'm just giving you my personal opinion here, okay? You might have less, you might have a lot more. This is just a ballpark estimate of what I like to see. Again, I like 12 months. So I hired my first acquisition a couple years ago once my average bank balance started hitting about $60,000. And that's when I started hiring an acquisition manager. Okay. The second thing is, depending on the position you hire, you'll want to ensure you have enough leads and deal flow already to fill their calendar. There's nothing worse than you as a business owner sitting there paying them, month in and month out. And essentially, guys, we'll go over how to protect yourself to lose the least amount of money with an employee that doesn't work out. Okay. But what you got to realize is there's nothing worse than hiring an employee last week, realizing you've got to pay them next week, and you're really just not sure if they've worked 40 hours, for the week. There is absolutely nothing worse than that. So you want to make sure that you are getting enough leads and deal flow. My advice to you, if you're watching this video and you haven't closed your first deal, at least just follow all the systems I show you and train yourself in those positions and get the marketing strategies and everything that I show in this course put to use. And then once your lead and deal flow is like, man, I'm working so hard, I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, time to hire some positions out. Once that lead and deal flow is up there, that is when you'll want to consider hiring. Because, and I'll go over exact numbers when I talk about the individual positions for acquisition, for deal coordinator, all that stuff to make sure that they're busy. But you want to make sure that you have enough leads and deal flow, being that if you're busy, they will probably be busy once they take over that role. Okay. So the third thing is you need to have an intricate understanding of the position, which you should have an intricate understanding of every position after watching this course, of course, but you need to prepare a solid training sequence for them. And I'll give you some examples of training sequences that we have, but for you, you're going to need to create your own training sequence, all right? They're going to need to know that their boss knows the position. They're going to need to know that their boss knows exactly how to do what they're teaching them to do, right? And it's funny, a lot of us, we bag on those gurus, and it's not okay, of course, but you bag on the guru who doesn't do what they teach, and it is absolutely a terrible thing, right? Now you got to look at it from an employee's perspective. If you're not the one training them on that stuff, how are they going to feel? Or maybe your COO or whatever, somebody from inside your company, if they're not the one actually training them on that stuff and they actually have done that and do it successfully, do you think that your employee is going to have much confidence in you? Absolutely not, right? So you need to do that position pretty successfully. It doesn't mean you need to have done it for years. If you want to hire in acquisitions and it's your third month in and you've been closing 2 or 3 deals a month, great. You have a track record. I'd say, in my opinion, if you've closed 2 or 3 deals, now you have a track record in acquisitions, right? And everything. So you just want to ensure that you're really following through on these systems and really understanding these positions, and then creating the training sequence for the rep. And again, I'll give you the sequence, but you're going to have to make your own training. So I'll tell you what to train them on, obviously. And obviously a lot of it, like how to run ARV and all that, I teach in the course. In the Virtual Wholesaling Academy that you already have access to if you're watching this right now. And so you'll see that, and you'll just need to make some quick video recordings of yourself, telling them how to do that. And I'll make a video, or you'll have a lesson on how to record training for them, and I'll show you the system and the tools that we use. But it's very important for you to realize that you're going to want to do that, okay? Anybody with a successful business trains their employees. And obviously your goal eventually would be to hire out a COO, or, like George trained Maria on acquisitions, right? I didn't train her. So eventually, you want people within your company to train new employees. But starting off, you're going to be the one training them. So, and, even though I wasn't directly training like Maria, she was still watching my training videos that I gave to George, right? So keep this in mind. This is pretty much some of the most important stuff I had to say as far as when to start hiring. So I'll both see you guys in the next lesson. All right, so I've thrown out this term a couple of times, which is KPIs. And a lot of you guys, you probably have heard this term before, but for those of you guys who don't know what key KPIs are, they are key performance indicators. So what does that mean? These are basically numbers that are going to show us if our business is on track to hit what they need to hit, and ultimately allow us to grow in the way that we need to grow and make stuff happen. So how are you going to know, right, if something is going well or not going well? Well, simply you won't unless you're tracking your numbers. So, for example, let's say I spent $3,000 on cold calling for this month, all right? Let's say out of that, we got 300 leads. From that, we got 5 deals, okay? And we made $45,000 between those 5 deals, right? So our KPIs would be, and these are not the only KPIs. We'll go over, what essentially you want to track. But these are the main KPIs, which is we had a $10 cost per lead, right? Because we had 300 leads from $3,000, right? So 3,000 divided by 300, that equals $10, okay? We had 60 leads per contract, right? So essentially we got 5 deals from 300 leads. So that'd be 60 per deal, right? 60 leads per deal. Okay, and we made $90,000 per deal. 5 deals made $45,000. Doesn't mean that every deal was exactly $9,000. One deal could have been 15, another could have been 7, another could have been 20, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. But an average of about $9,000 per deal because we got 5 deals and made $45,000. Okay, and what does this tell us? Well, now this tells us if we're getting 60, let's say, maybe our goal is to make $100,000 a month, and we'll have a lesson on how to, set your goals for your KPIs and for your revenue. But let's say our goal is $100,000 a month, and we're making $9,000 per deal. We need to close about 11 deals that month, right? And so that would mean 11 times 60 would be the number of leads that we would need to get. So that's about, I think, 666, leads. Sorry for that weird number, but yeah, you get the point. So $10 cost per lead, 60 leads per contract, $9,000 per deal, profit per deal, and those are the main 3 KPIs that we look at to show us how to ultimately get to where we need to go. And going back to our example of wanting to make $100,000 a month, if we needed, let's say 600 leads to get $100,000, right? We'd have to spend $6,000 at a $10 cost per lead. So this will show us how much marketing to do, where to put our money in our marketing, because we know the KPIs on the different marketing streams, right? And ultimately help us grow. So see you guys in the next lesson. Okay, so how do we use KPIs then to predict revenue and ultimately figure out how much marketing we need to do to hit our revenue goals? So example 1, going back to the example from the last lesson, I spent $3,000 on cold calling this month per se. Like, let's just say that for an example. These are not real numbers, but they are very realistic numbers, and I'll share my KPIs. In fact, I might as well tell you now, I did get these numbers close to mine. Everything's changed on a monthly basis typically, but this is what we're around typically. Is we close 1 in maybe 65 to 70 leads per contract on cold call leads. We're around 10, sometimes 15, highest $20 cost per lead, but typically around 10 to 15, and I'm at about $9,000 per deal. So this is essentially my business here on these numbers. So these, I don't know what your numbers will look like in your market, but this is a good baseline to start with if you're in a Midwest type market. And obviously if you're in a market like, let's say LA, you might be at $30,000 per deal, $50 cost per lead, and 75 leads per contract, right? Let's just say, for example. Depends on your market, depends on the competitiveness. But these are my baseline numbers. So let's say we want to hit $50,000 per month. Okay, we already have these numbers. We know we made $45,000 from these numbers, but we want to hit $50,000 per month just using cold calling based on the KPIs. And based on these, we need to spend about $3,000 to $4,000. If you want to get granular, we would want to spend at least $3,600, right? Because if we're getting 60 leads to get one deal, and each lead costs us $10, that means to get one deal that makes us $9,000, we would spend around $600, okay? And so you want to spend $3,600 on cold calling. For me, I like to overshoot. So I would want to spend $4,000 if I wanted to make $50,000 per month minimum. Okay, so I would like to, I know 3,600 is the exact number. I want to go spend a little over that just in case the numbers are a little bit off. I still want to hit that revenue goal. So I would shoot to spend $4,000 that month and get around 360 leads for the month, okay, consistently. So that means whatever we have to do. If that means, and you'll watch the KPI for the cold callers if you're using cold calling. I also do PPC, which on PPC, we're at about $150 cost per lead, and we're closing about 1 in 10 leads right now. So it's a little bit more expensive than cold calling, but it takes a lot less leads to get one deal. So that means you can put more focus into your leads and and go from there. So direct mail, you're typically at about this would probably be around $90 to $100 cost per lead, maybe 80 if it's a good campaign, and somewhere around 20 to 30 leads per contract. So that's what it is for direct mail. These numbers are cold calling. And hopefully those examples I just gave you help if you're doing direct mail or PPC. And refer back to the Virtual Wholesaling Academy for the specific how-tos on doing that marketing. Obviously, in this situation, this is more of a business. This is a business builder course, not a how to send a direct mail campaign course. So if you bought this, you already have access to that Virtual Wholesaling Academy course. So go back there and reference if you want to know how to do direct mail, what list to target, stuff like that. So this is the business building type stuff on how we're going to actually hit our revenue goals, right? So let's just say we wanted to make, let's say, $150,000 per month. So we'd triple these numbers, right? So instead of spending $4,000, we would spend $12,000. Instead of getting 360 leads for the month, we would want to get, let's say, let me pull up the calculator, 360 times 3, 1,080 leads, right? And obviously when you're scaling up, the numbers are not going to exactly be as they were when you were doing 50,000. Your cost per lead might rise to $20 or $25. maybe because your acquisition has so many leads to handle, or maybe there's 2 acquisitions ideally in that situation. Maybe your leads per contract goes up to 70 leads per contract, but maybe your profit per deal also goes up to $10,000 because you're doing more buyer marketing and doing that. So you can see how utilizing these numbers, you can really predict your revenue. And obviously, it's never going to be exactly predictable. This month might be a little different than next month. But as a rough liner, you can typically look at your numbers and say, as long as I spend $4,000 per month this year, I should end up, as long as I watch my KPIs and I'm at these numbers, I should end up around $500,000 for the year in revenue, right? And so that can be how great KPIs can be to help you grow your business and stay on top of everything. If you're not tracking this and you just don't, some of you guys, maybe you have a bigger business than me, but you don't know these numbers. That's a real problem, because how are you going to figure out, which marketing campaigns are working the best? How are you going to know what return you're getting on your marketing spend? We're really lucky in the real estate business that we make so much per deal. In a lot of other niches like e-commerce and stuff like that, people really have to know their numbers from, down to the teeth. They got to know it like the back of their own hand. For us, some of us are able to build a successful business by not knowing these numbers, but the truth is it can come to bite you when you want to grow. So you might be sitting there, well, I'm already doing 150, 200 grand a month, and Jaelin, you're just doing 50,000 a month. Well, yeah, you're doing better than me revenue-wise, but you don't even know how much profit you're taking home. That's a real problem. And so again, like I said in the beginning of the course, some of you guys, maybe you're doing 100K a year. Maybe you just closed your first few deals and you want to scale up. But some of you guys watching this probably already do a couple million a year. And, this stuff is really, really important for you to implement in your business. Some good books to read would be Traction, stuff like that, because it's very important to know your numbers as you're scaling. Not just, just to say you know your numbers, but really just to know how much profit are you bringing home. Because you can say you did 200 grand last month, but if you spent 150, then, what's the point, right? But if you know your numbers and you spent 150, now you can improve and trim the fat on the marketing streams that didn't work. And in my opinion, nobody should ever spend 150 grand to make 200 in this business. That's kind of crazy, but some people do because they don't know their numbers. So this is why I like to go after it in a systemized way where I know the numbers. That way I can, I'd rather spend 4,000 and make 50 than spend 100 and make 150 because I don't know my numbers. You know what I mean? So hopefully this makes sense, guys, and I will see you guys in the next lesson. Okay, so for this video, I wanted to go over my current model of roughly, how we're doing our numbers, stuff like that, as far as, now you're looking to actually start hiring. It's pretty important to have an overview. Now, I don't know exactly what you want your business to look like, but I'm going to go over what my business looks like today, give you some examples, and that way, as you're building your business, figuring out who you want to hire and going after it, how you want to build your business, giving you something to kind of refer back to. So for me, I'm around $10,000 to $12,000 per month, and that's, VAs for cold calling, our overhead for paying my acquisitions and deal coordinator and my leads manager, stuff like that. Sometimes we're a little bit lower, maybe $8,000, but typically we don't get above $12,000 so far. So at least at the numbers that we're currently doing. All right. And I pay out total acquisition commissions, typically ends around 8%. I also pay 3% to my deal coordinator. That's of profit, not of like the property value. That's of our company profit. So low overhead, time freed up. That was my big goal building out this model. Is I don't want to have 100 grand a month in overhead. I don't want to have a big office that I have to show up to every single day, manage the employees, make sure they're wearing the clothes they need to wear, all that kind of stuff. I wanted everybody to be on the same page and ultimately free up my time to allow me to do the things that I want to do on a daily basis. Now, don't get me wrong. I love working on my business and I do work. However, I didn't want that to be my life, right? So the cold calling numbers, typically you'll see this in the lesson going over cold calling, is 3 leads a day per agent. That's on average. That's about 12 leads a day, and that is about 350 leads monthly with the, this is using an example of having 4 agents on. Typically, right now I'm at 9. We'll sometimes go down to 4 or 5 when we don't have enough lists. So that's why we've added in other marketing streams like PPC, added back in direct mail, because in a smaller market, you can't always keep 9 or 10 cold callers busy, okay, and make sure they have fresh numbers to call. Right, so on the conversion, we have a pretty solid close rate. We get about 1 deal per 65 leads, and I mentioned, sometimes we're around 70, but 1 deal per 65 is roughly what we've been at. We close about 1 to 2 deals a week, and we make about $9,000 average deal. So, we spend about 10 grand, and on a bad month, we'll make 30. On a really good month, we'll make 80. So that's kind of where we're at for my business. And my whole goal, again, guys, is not to say, oh, I do millions of dollars, I'm the biggest fish in the pond. There are guys out there who do a lot of more revenue than me. But my whole goal with my model was to create something that was relatively predictable, that I could rely on for income every month, and something that didn't rule my life. Something where, I don't have to, again, go into the office every day. I literally, guys, will be doing my team meetings, and I'll go over kind of our daily huddles and stuff like that in the course. But I'll be doing team meetings from the beach. It's pretty great to be able to be sitting down on the beach, looking at the beautiful water, sitting down on the sand, enjoying the sun, and, while, meeting with my team and going over numbers and making sure everything's running smoothly. My goal was never to do maximum amount of money possible. It was always just to create something that was predictable and that ran without me actually being there, right? And so that's the model that I built. Some of you guys will want to build an office. That's okay. There's tons of stuff in this course you'll be able to take and actually utilize to allow you to, go out there and, create a great business for you and your goals. For some of you guys, you want the same thing that I want. Some of you guys don't want to even hire anybody. You just wanted to essentially ensure that you had your stuff systemized so that even though you're running all, holding all hats in the business, doing acquisitions, doing deal coordination, all that kind of stuff, making sure that you're still doing what needs to be done and that your marketing is streamlined, all that kind of stuff. So no matter what your model is that you want to run, take what you can from this course, get clear on what you want out of your business, and then go from there. I can sit here and say, oh, I want to do $300K a month wholesaling, but why would be the question? Why do you want that? Okay. If your why is strong enough, you can make it happen. I know for a fact tomorrow I could go open up an office, start spending 50 to 100 grand a month in marketing, and I'd probably make around 300 grand a month. But that's just not what I want to do. I like my team. I like my virtual model, and it works for me and what I need for my wholesale business. So you've got to figure out, what do you need? Doesn't mean I'm not trying to grow. We definitely are trying to grow, and I do believe we'll hit 7 figures this year. But it's a little harder to find quality people when you're doing it virtually. But I think at this point we've worked out a pretty nice process for that. So if you guys are looking to do virtual, obviously you're going to get a lot of value from this. But if you're looking to do local too, you'll get a lot of value, and I definitely can help you get that process set up. So look forward to seeing you guys in the next lesson. Hopefully this video has created some clarity for you and figuring out what the model that you want to run is before you start hiring the actual employees. I'll see you guys in the next lesson. All right, so systemizing your sales process. Super, super important to have a real process of dealing with your leads and making sure everything's handled in a systemized way. So, starting out, when a lead comes in, they come into our system as need MAO. And what does that mean? That means need maximum allowable offer, okay? So lead comes into the Podio system, they have a reason for selling, condition, maybe they have an asking price, whatever it is. I run the MAO. So typically in my business, I'm still running all of my maximum allowable offers. I do that daily. It doesn't take a ton of time for me. Maybe it takes an hour per day, and that's typically, maybe not even an hour, probably 30 minutes a day. And that's a majority of the time that I spend working in my business besides managing my employees, right? And so I run the MAO, and the reason I do that is I don't have to. My sales team can, and they will start doing that over time. But for me, I've just felt the most comfortable running that MAO quickly because I want to give my sales team the most time on the phone possible. Yes, they could run the MAO, but it takes me 30 minutes to run MAOs on our deals. Might take them an hour and a half, 2 hours. And could they learn it over time and get quicker? Yeah, they could. Problem is then that's hour to an hour and a half per day that they could be on the phone closing deals that they're running MAOs. So I'll eventually start handing that off, probably not to the sales team even, probably just to a VA who I specifically train on how to run MAOs, but I run the MAO, and then I move it into the make offer bucket. So now that lead is classified as a make offer, and my acquisitions team can now see that, and they go in, they call, and they make that offer. So obviously our need MAO is the MAO that we put in, which is maximum allowable offer, which, by the way, if you're watching this and you don't quite know what that is, go back to the Virtual Wholesaling Academy and watch the lessons on MAO. It's just the max number we can offer and still hit our target profit margin on the deal. So they'll make the offer. Typically, they make it, let's say our MAO is 100,000. He'll start around 70 to 80, and really he'll try to get a price out of the seller. But if he can't, he'll start around 70 to 80. See where they need to be at, and run through the sales process, which the purpose of this course is not to teach you the sales, a sales technique or strategy, because that's all in the Virtual Wholesaling Academy. It's to illustrate to you what an ideal process looks like to make sure your employees are able to handle your leads in a systemized way. Okay, so from there, he calls and makes the offer, and once the seller either accepts, and if they accept, we send the contract right away via Sign Now, notary, or they meet at our title company with our title agent and sign there. And if they don't accept, then they go to either a long-term follow-up. So let's say they say no, but maybe in 6 months. Now they are classified as a long-term follow-up. And if they say yes, then obviously it's contract accepted, and then we create offer in our system, right? So we create an offer that says we send a contract to them, and that offer is very simple. It's either one of three categories. Number one is contract sent. Number two is contract received. Number three is no longer interested, right? So our goal is, once we push that seller and send that contract via Sign Now and make that now an offer, our goal is to move them from contract sent to contract received, and either get it to contract receive or determine that they're no longer interested once we've sent that contract, right? So once we do get that signed, then the deal coordinator calls and introduces herself to schedule the inspection, and she will then get a time from them, and then she'll schedule it with our inspector, which they're not a professional inspector. They are just someone we know from our network. Again, I go over how to do this in Virtual Wholesaling Academy. We pay him $50, and he takes 60 plus pictures and 2 to 3 videos. And so she'll schedule that, and the inspector will go in and do that. And then we'll obviously get escrow open once we do our inspection, because all of our contracts are subject to interior inspection, right? So we don't actually open escrow right away, right? Deal coordinator introduces herself and says the next step is to get an inspection done. And then we'll send him out there. And then from there, we'll get escrow open. And once that's done, we will either start marketing to buyers, renegotiate, or cancel based on the condition. So yeah, typically our goal is, for every two contracts that we get, we want to close at least one. So bare minimum. So we're at a bare minimum of 50%. We don't need to renegotiate. We're just good, right? 50%. On the other 50%, maybe 25% we need to renegotiate, and the other 25% is just in too bad of condition. So for us, our acquisition team is pulling in 2 to 3 contracts a week, sometimes 4 or 5, and that's where we get down to our 1 or 2 closed, right? And that's part of doing it virtual, and that's our process. So a lot of people who show that they have 30 or 40 deals on the board for the month, what you don't realize is maybe 70% of them are actually going to end up, closing. So that's the reality of the business. And, when you're doing it virtually, that's just how it's going to go. So that is our sales process. Pretty simple, but pretty also super powerful, right? Most of you guys, maybe some of you guys don't even have this process. And if you don't have this process, your sales team is going to be very, very confused. So this is how we run it. My sales team has got it pretty streamlined at this point. One thing I didn't bring up is each seller is tagged as either hot, warm, or cold also. So obviously we can double up on our views. We can look at all new make offers that we need to call and make an offer on that are hot, right? Because if I see that they're asking a price that's under our MAO, I'll mark it as hot, right? So sales team can go on there and use those viewfinders and Podio to ultimately figure out where they need to be at on the numbers. So I'll see you guys in the next training. Okay, so my core 4 marketing strategies. Obviously, you're looking to systematize your business And you need to know exactly how to shove your leads full of or your business full of leads. And obviously there's 3 entire sections of this course dedicated to cold calling, because most likely you came here wanting to build a business, but also to learn cold calling at a systemized, mass business level. So I wanted to go over my core 4 for marketing. And rest assured, I like to say master one marketing stream, but my biggest problem for most of 2018 was that I was just so focused on just one marketing stream, which was cold calling. So once I started adding in these other marketing streams, I saw my business start to really grow, and that's why we had to bring on a second acquisition manager. And, you just can't rely on one marketing stream if you're really building a big business. That's what this year taught me, is that you can get to 400, 500K a year on one marketing stream. But to really get to 7 figures, you need to be doing multiple marketing streams and really know your numbers on those marketing streams. So the first one is cold calling. I love cold calling. It's a great way to get a consistent flow of leads into your business. I'm not going to talk about the how-tos in this lesson because obviously, again, there's 3 full sections in this course specifically on building a cold calling team. But you're typically looking at, and again, these are rough estimates. I don't know what market you're in. You could be in San Francisco. You could be in Wichita, Kansas. I'm in specifically Memphis, and I also work some West Coast markets. So, in a higher end market for me, I'm looking at $20 to $50 a lead, depending on the market. Could be $30, $40 a lead on average on a higher end market. Okay. Number of leads per deal doesn't typically change for me. Average deal size for us in a Midwest market is 9,000. West Coast is around 20 to 25,000. Okay. So just keep that in mind. These are rough estimates to help you with these marketing streams understand how much you're going to need to market. So direct mail is great. Okay, a lot of people don't like direct mail. I was a big proponent of don't do direct mail, but the truth is, if you're new, you should not do direct mail. Okay, if you're just looking to get your first few deals a month, don't do direct mail. But if you're looking to have a consistent flow of leads and a variety of leads, really, direct mail can be really great. As you can see, $80 to $100 cost per lead. This is in the same type of market that I'm getting $10 to $20 a lead in. So this is where I've typically been at on my direct mail campaigns. I'm anywhere from 20 to 30 leads per deal on my campaigns. So that means, 20 to 30 times 100 would equal, around $2,000 to $3,000 to get a deal. And cold calling, if we're getting taking 100 leads to get a deal, which you guys know my numbers are better than that, but let's just say 100 at $10 per lead, that's $1,000 per deal. So $1,000 to $2,000 if we're at $20. Okay. So cold calling is definitely cheaper than direct mail, but it doesn't mean you want to abandon direct mail entirely. So I mentioned, depending on your market, you're going to have a hard time keeping on a lot of cold callers because you're going to have big lists. Right? So for some of us, that can be a problem. So why not cold call that list and direct mail that list, okay? So that's what I like to do. Depends on your budget, right? I'm just giving you my core 4 that, in my opinion, any 7-figure business is probably doing all 4 of these. PPC, I love PPC. It's great. Pay-per-click is basically Google ads. So you search up We Buy Houses, or a seller searches up We Buy Houses, you come up as one of the top-ranked ads, right? You have organic, but then you have the ads on Google. And so I'm about $100 to $150 per lead, and we're around 5 to 10 leads per deal. I don't have these numbers exactly down yet because we've only been doing it for a couple of months. However, we're around 5 to 10 leads per deal on that. So, and the average deal size doesn't really change between these 3 marketing streams. Obviously, with any of them, you're bound to get some big deals, bound to get some normal deals. And I heard it from one of my mentors. He said for about 1 in every 20 wholesale deals, you'll get a grand slam. So in a market like Memphis, a grand slam would be $50,000, right? Or 40, let's say. In a big market, a grand slam could be $50,000 to $100,000 deal size, right? On a grand slam. So 1 deal for every 60 deals will be a grand slam, but your average deal size is typically going to stay the same. Now, this is a marketing stream that probably a lot of you guys haven't heard about, which is legal text messaging through a program called Sherpa. And I will put the link to sign up for Sherpa if you're interested, and I'll also do a lesson on how to utilize Sherpa after this, and show you exactly what we're doing to use Sherpa the right way. And it's legal. At least that's what all the attorney letters that they've provided me say. So again, it's not 100%. It hasn't been tested yet. But for what we understand, it is a legal way to text sellers because we're not selling anything. It's an informational text. Hey, just want to see if you're selling your house. I'm interested in buying it. stuff like that. So I'll make a lesson on how we utilize that. But right now we're seeing about $10 to $20 a lead. So same cost per lead as cold calling, and 40 to 50 leads to get a deal. So a little bit easier to get a deal than cold calling. And we're seeing about double the size of our cold calling on a deal size, which is awesome, just because a lot of people aren't really using text messaging right now because there's not a lot of legal services out there to use. And again, I say legal because that's what all the top TCPA attorneys have said and provided letters on that. It's not my software. I do not own it. I'll give you a customer code if you sign up, use the code JW, because I have a deal worked out where I don't get paid for you doing it, but I get a lower monthly cost. And Sherpa costs $1,000 per month. You get 25,000 records to upload, so 25,000 property addresses, so your tax delinquent list you can upload, your vacant list. And in some ways, I actually would recommend that you start with Sherpa even over cold calling. So you can hire agents like you would for cold calling, but train them on how to use Sherpa, which is pretty cool because Sherpa, they have a YouTube channel, and I literally just handed our agents, I have a couple of agents that work Sherpa. We literally just handed them the YouTube training that Sherpa has on YouTube. And, we never really had to train them ourselves or myself on doing it. So I really like Sherpa right now, but I'll go over that in another video. This is my core 4 for marketing strategies. We'll most likely hit 7 figures this year because of adding in these other ones. This past year, 2018, we just did cold calling. We did well, but it's time to really expand the business, okay? And that's why I recommend pick one of these, master it, and then move on to another, okay? So giving you some rough deal numbers here so that you can understand kind of where to go with your marketing dollars and stuff. Again, nothing's guaranteed, guys. Don't get me wrong. This is not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed to get these numbers if you cold call. You're not guaranteed to get these numbers if you direct mail. Nothing is a guarantee in business. But again, going back to the mad scientist, I'm giving you my rough KPIs. So you kind of have a, kind of a bar of where to hit, right, as far as your numbers go. But this is not going to, your numbers might be way, way better than this. They might be a little bit worse. They might be way worse. So figure out what your numbers look like. Do some testing. Pick one. And cold calling is pretty reliable, in my opinion. Texting is also pretty reliable. These two, you're going to have to test a little bit. So if you have more of a budget, if you have more than $3 or $4 grand a month in spend, and you're trying to scale up, then direct mail and PPC can be great to add in. I really like cold calling for a consistent deal source. I like Sherpa to target those more motivated lists like tax delinquent, vacant, stuff like that. So it can be great. And again, I'm not promising here in this video that Sherpa is 100% legal. What I'm telling you is, in my opinion, I've seen, the owner of Sherpa provided me with all of the, the top TCPA attorney did an opinion letter for him and all this kind of stuff. And, we believe it's legal. Doesn't mean that it's been tested again. So I don't want to guarantee you, that's 100% legal, but from what I believe it is. So that's why we're currently using it in our business. So, and that's one of the reasons I don't really use RVM is because a lot of people say RVM is legal, but it's not 100%. So, RVM is another great marketing strategy. Problem is I don't use it because I don't know 100% if it's illegal or not, so that's just honestly just me telling you guys the truth is I don't do RVM for that reason. So some people just don't care if it's legal or not. They still do it. Bandit signs, I didn't even mark that. It's a little harder to scale bandit signs, but they are a great lead source. If you want to spend $1,000 a month on bandit signs, you probably walk away with 1 or 2 deals a month, So bandit signs are a little in the gray area as well because some cities, they're illegal. So again, cost of doing business, you got to figure out what is worth your risk tolerance. And I'm not telling you to go start doing Sherpa. I'm just telling you my opinion and what's working for me. Okay. So I will do a training video on Sherpa and I'll provide a link down below of this video if you want to get signed up. It is a great lead source. So I'll see you guys in the next training. All right. So the hiring process for your first inside sales rep, your first acquisition manager. Okay. I like a site called Outbounders. The reason I do is because there's a lot of expatriates. There's a lot of people who used to live in the United States, but they've moved to another country. Maybe it could be Europe. Maybe it could be, South America, whatever it might be. They moved somewhere because they wanted to get a lower cost of living, or maybe they had family somewhere else. But the main purpose is for me to find those people who understand our culture. They already lived and most likely grew up in the U.S., but they live somewhere else now. Now, they're not going to be cheap. Some of you guys are looking to hire for your acquisitions a VA for $4 an hour. Okay, if I'm spending money on leads, I don't want someone who's getting paid $4 an hour to work my leads. That's just the plain truth of it. No disrespect to anybody who works and makes that amount of money from other countries. However, for me, I want somebody in this position who's going to be more high level, somebody who I can rely on more to be a problem solver, not just a robot to the job, right? My team, what I really like about them is they solve problems, okay? They are problem solvers. They're not going to get out there and just do the robotic stuff. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. No, they solve problems and they work to get deals done, okay? So you're not going to get that high-level person paying $4 an hour, all right? They're not going to be cheap like that. Now, it might be cheap compared to what you were expecting, right? You might be expecting to pay in acquisitions, $20 or $30 an hour or whatever. But the truth is you can even do commission only. Now, for commission only, what I recommend typically is more of a local person to where you live. So, or just someone from your network in the U.S. For outbounders, if you're going to use this to find a virtual acquisition rep, I would not recommend doing commission only because I want somebody to be incentivized to be working the hours. They need a consistent pay. It's just not it's just not really the way things are run when you're talking about using a site like Outbounders. Okay. For me, I pay my inside sales rep, which is my acquisition manager, a $12 per hour base. And same with my deal coordinator, okay? Doesn't mean that they can just close no deals and still make $12 an hour, right? If 2 months go by and they have not closed a deal with us, or even if a month goes by they haven't closed a deal, we have a serious issue and they're most likely getting fired, you know what I mean? So don't get me wrong, okay? We pay a base, but we're not just allowing them to rely on that base. A lot of people do what's called a draw. A draw is perfect, but if they're going to do a draw, they're going to get fired. You know what I mean? So if they don't close the deal and they're getting paid $12 an hour, they haven't closed a deal after a month, 2 months, they're getting fired, If they're really working hard and they're hitting their numbers for the first month and maybe they're just new and, they didn't get a deal, but, second month we'll give them another shot. But if the second month they close no deals, they're done. So the way I look at mine is it's not an official draw, which what a draw means is basically, let's say you agree to a draw of $2,000 a month, right? And your employee, they close $100,000 in revenue and their commission split, let's say, for example, is 10%, right? So that's $10,000 in revenue, okay? But the next month, so they make $10,000 this month. Next month, they close 0 deals and they can hit you up and say, Jaelin, I want to take advantage of my $2,000 a month draw. And so they'll get paid $2,000. However, on the third month, let's say they make another $100,000 in revenue for you. And so their commission would be $10,000. Now that $2,000 that they took the previous month is subtracted from that next month's commission, right? So instead of getting $10,000, now they get $8,000 that third month. Okay, so hopefully you guys are following that. That's what a draw is, okay? So I don't do a draw, but my acquisitions, they should be at least closing 3 deals a month minimum. That's why I said, we're expecting at least $30,000 a month in revenue. Bare minimum $25,000, So I don't really, because I'm in more of a cash flow market with more deal flow, we don't really have months where they don't close deals. But, for some people that might happen. Same with my deal coordinator. I pay my acquisitions, my inside sales rep, same thing, is 8% commission. And my leads manager, if you guys remember from my team overview, leads manager, we pay $10 per hour base. So, and she also gets 8% commission, but George, my acquisition, trained her and manages her on an ongoing basis. So she gets $10 an hour and 5%. He gets the 3% on top of what she gets because he comes in often and helps close up that deal. Deal coordinator, she gets 3%, commission of our profit and $12 an hour. So that's the way I run it. And I wanted to show you guys a sample job listing. So this is outbounders.com, as you can see there. The job title was Need Outbounder to Handle Warm Lead Follow-Up and Sales Process for our real estate investment company. As you can see there, I am. I started out hiring, as you can see, 600 hours billed. I started out, with my team on Outbounders. However, I moved them off Outbounders once I realized that they were really solid. So I'll go over that tool. We use Time Doctor to track their time of the hours they work and stuff, and for me to pay them. I'll show you guys exactly how I pay them shortly in this lesson. I'll show it to you. But the title was Need Outbounders to Handle Warm Lead, blah, blah, blah. We are looking for a candidate who can handle inside sales for a real estate investment company. We generate an average of 10 to 20 leads per day in our market. Need someone who's driven, charismatic, empathetic, and ready to grow the company long term. Okay, your duties will include, so getting clear on the duties, being the first and main point of contact with our warm lead sellers who are already interested in selling a property to us, collecting information on the property and the owner's situation, determining a rough idea of the property's valuation and having it approved by our sales manager, right? And that would be me, so I approve our ARV estimates, organizing leads in our CRM, managing follow-up with past leads, making offers to seller leads in our database, and sending purchase agreements to sellers when our offers are accepted. If you're great with talking to people and are a fast learner, you'll be a great fit. This position is hourly plus commission with a high income potential. It's a business to consumer, closing sales. So we want to see them, the skills right there that I put in there. So details is hourly, full-time, 30 plus hours a week. As you can see, I posted my first job post here on April 17th. Calling time 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We got 24 applicants. And so this is my job posting. Now I'll copy and paste all of this for you guys in the PDF right now. Now let's get into the tool that I use to track them in this lesson. I'm going to pause the training right now, but for you to look immediate. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here I am on timedoctor.com, Time Doctor. And I'm showing you right now, as you can see on the left, you can go dashboard, edit time, screenshots. So it actually takes a screenshot of your employees, of what they're doing at that moment. So as you can see, I don't track my own time here, but George, it's currently Sunday, so he last worked 2 days ago, right? Which would be Friday, and I'll pull up the Friday time just to show you. So on Friday, Natalia, she works 6 hours. George works 6 hours as well. Maria works exactly 6 hours. So here I can look at, their computer work time, their mobile work time, or their edited time. So typically what edited time means is they were on a phone call, maybe they were with the title company, whatever that looks like. And for computer work time was actually, sitting there on the computer. So, and for me, I don't micromanage. I don't come in here every single day and look at every single screenshot, okay? I told my employees know they work up to 40 hours, minimum of 30 hours per week. And they know that if they don't hit their KPIs, then we're going to have a problem, okay? So do I use all of this and looking at their screenshots? Sometimes, yes, but only when I know there's an issue, okay? So for my team, when they're hitting their numbers, I don't really mind. Edited time, I could go in here and make sure they were actually doing what they need to do and take care of it. But for me, when we're hitting our numbers, that just doesn't need to be done. So I don't worry about that until I have a problem with the KPIs. So maybe George did not hit the numbers he needs to hit on for his calls, and I'll go over that in this training as well. But as long as he's doing it, the number of calls he needs to make, and Maria and Natalia, they're hitting their numbers, we don't have an issue, okay? So yes, I use this somewhat, but do I use it, to micromanage? Absolutely not. Your team is going to get drained if you're micromanaging. They just want to, they know that our main form of figuring out if they're performing is their KPIs. And, and this, what I use Time Doctor really for is to track how much they work so that I can pay them accordingly. So like, for example, for the week, this would be this week, but let me go back. So for the week, George worked 38 hours, 39 hours about, Natalia 35, and Maria 30. So obviously, as you can see, they are the ones who send me the bill, and I use Payoneer. So I can pull that up for you guys real quick in just a second, show you what that is. But I have a Payoneer account, they have a Payoneer account, and they know that they send me on Monday. Every Monday, they send me a request to pay them via Payoneer, and I pay them straight from my business checking account. And it's super easy for me because I just jump on here and confirm that, that the number that they asked for was the correct number, which as long as you have ethical employees, it should be every time, but I still check, and you get them paid. So hopefully this made sense, and I will show you guys now Payoneer real quick before we move on. Okay, so this is Payoneer. As you can see, they're kind of get paid by companies and marketplaces worldwide. So if you have employees who work in another country, makes it super easy to pay them, and it's really easy to get an account. So this is what I choose to use to pay my employees through. You can use PayPal, whatever might fit you best, but for us, we use Payoneer. So I'll see you guys in the next training. All right, guys, congratulations. You made the decision to add cold calling to your business as a marketing stream, and you will not be disappointed. This is literally one of the best marketing streams in today's market. You got so many investors, so many other people fighting for the same deals, and people forgot about this. It might seem a little bit old, barbaric to you, but I'm telling you, people forgot about it, and it is a gold mine. This system is money because so many people, you know, your mind is not open to how easy it can be to actually, you know, make this a process to where you're not actually banging out on the phone 8 hours a day, which would absolutely suck because there's so many other things that go into running a good real estate business. So that's really the goal of this course, is to teach you exactly how to systemize the cold calling process to hire people with minimum commitment on your end and get leads for literally $10, $20, $30 depending on your market, and just make a killing on those leads, getting deals. So a brief quick overview. Number one, the thing you need to understand is it's all about the numbers, and we're going to talk totally about key performance indicators, tracking all of your calling agents, everything, just to make sure that your numbers are on point. It's the same as any other marketing campaign, but it's just as important, if not more important, with cold calling, because you actually have people working for you who you need to keep accountable. You know, I'm going to show you again ways to make sure that there's low commitment on your end, so that if they're sucking, you just fire them. Or if you know, you're not getting deals from it, you just fire them, and you're looking for new agents or looking for new lists. We're going to talk all about that so you know that you are getting the best return for your money with your cold calling team. So another thing, it's best when it's combined with other marketing strategies. Now, it's very good. Don't get me wrong. It is amazing, in fact, as its own marketing stream. But just as any good real estate business, you want to have other supplemental marketing strategies. For example, if you're sending mail to the same list that you're calling, you have an edge, because you can say something like, you know, hey, we just wanted to call and see if you got our letter. We're interested in buying the property at 123 Main Street. Or if you're doing PPC, hey, I'm not sure if you saw our ad on Google yet, but we're actually looking for properties in the area. Figure we call, blah, blah, blah. So again, best when combined with other marketing strategies. I'm sure that you can see why that actually really helps cold calling. Again, it's amazing getting leads and deals as its own marketing strategy. If you're doing no other marketing, it is still a great strategy to use. In fact, I would argue the best, that it's the best is what I would argue. Number 3 is hiring good virtual agents. Hiring good virtual agents is one of the most important parts to having a strong cold calling operation. So you don't want to have to go open up an office, buy all these computers, desks, chairs, pay electric every month, pay rent every month to your to an office landlord. You don't want to have to do that. You want to find really solid agents who are virtual, people who you can manage through a weekly meeting, via web chat or whatever we're doing, or a phone meeting, conference call. That's how I do it. We just do, right online on a Skype-like conference website, which I could share with you guys in a later lesson. So you're going to want to make sure that you really find good virtual agents to hire, because that is very important. The next one is you need to understand that you can start getting leads immediately. If you do this right, find the right person, takes a day to train them, and the next day they can be getting leads. So, and in fact, really, same day. It takes maybe an hour to train them, and then their training is them calling and getting leads. It's literally that simple, and I share everything, my standard operating procedures in this course. I share my scripts and everything, so that your people are easily and quickly trained. You can, get them in there, getting leads right away. And the last thing you need to understand is this is, without a doubt, one of the cheapest ways to get deals in today's market. bar the free strategies that we all know about. So as far as paid strategies, as in scalable things that you can put thousands of dollars into every month and get consistent leads, this is one of the cheapest ways to get deals. Maybe the only competitors maybe door knocking and stuff like that, which that's extremely hard to do because you have to have all your people local. This is great because you can have and hire people all across the country and actually in other countries as well, and we'll talk about that because you can hire overseas agents and they do just fine as well. So we'll talk about how to do that in a future lesson. But guys, get excited. Get ready to learn this new skill for your business. Let's get you leads in very cheap and get your first cold calling deal so you can truly believe and know that this is one of the best marketing strategies going right now in the real estate investing business niche. So see you guys in the next lesson. All right, so let's get into the fun stuff. So what lists are we calling? Now, the first thing to keep in mind is generally you're going to want to call every list that you're mailing. So for a lot of people, that would include absentee owners, high equity owner occupants, vacants, and tax defaults. So the reason why I list absentee owners rather than high equity owner occupants, which is actually the other one that we could add. So the reason why these two are probably the best, where a lot of people who are teaching direct mail are going to say, don't mail these. You want to start with vacants and tax defaults and really distressed lists. Now I'm saying mail these, call these ones because we're going to be grinding through such a large amount of sellers that you're going to very quickly run out of vacants and run out of tax defaults and then divorce and whatever other pre-foreclosures, whatever kind of lists that you think are very distressed and have a high probability of selling at a discount. You're going to run out of those lists quick. Here's why. Each agent is typically going to make anywhere from I'd say, 15,000 dials to 30,000 dials in a month. Now, I don't know about you, but even in Phoenix, I don't think we can each month supply 30,000 vacants and 30,000 tax defaults. In fact, vacants in Phoenix and LA, these big markets, are normally around maybe 5 to 15,000, maybe a little bit more sometimes, maybe up to 20. On tax defaults, even less, way less, in fact. So the problem with, just using these two lists, which they're still great lists to call, but you want to have big absentee owner lists and high equity owner occupant lists. And I'll show you how to get those for a lot cheaper in a future video, depending on where you are in the country. We have a few secret lists that we call that you're going to love. And you're going to want to have those lists ready because when your agent hits you up for new lists twice a week, you're going to start going a bit crazy because you're having to find new lists, and you want to make sure that you have a lot of lists and a lot of records ready for them to call. And typically, you just can't have those ready with your normal vacants and your normal tax defaults. So again, you're going to want to focus on high volume lists. I know every other guru out there says focus on those motivated people, those distressed lists. Start out with those. What I'm saying is, yes, start out with those if it's just you calling. But the bulk of this course is focused on you outsourcing that calling and turning it into a lead machine and being able to pull a ton of leads in for a very low cost per lead into your real estate investing business. So to do that, you're going to need big lists. You just can't play around with these. Call them, make sure they're hit at least once a month, but have these bigger lists ready to go. And we'll talk about where to get those lists in one of the next lessons. I believe it is where to get good numbers for your list, because actually the high equity owner occupant list, it actually comes with numbers and they're all free. Where with absentee owners, you'll have to pay a little bit for good numbers, and vacants and tax defaults, you'll pay a little bit. But the high equity owner occupants is a pretty great list to have. You can pretty much pull an unlimited amount of them. At least what feels like unlimited. Sometimes you can get 50, 100,000 records in your market, which is amazing. So we'll go over how often to call each list and all that kind of stuff in a future lesson. This is just what list to call. That way you know exactly which lists you're hitting each week, and which ones you can pull out of your tool belt. And it might seem like it's kind of not a lot of lists. It's supposed to be that way. These ones are going to have a lot, and you want to keep it really simple for yourself because it can get disorganized quick. You can test out, of course, a bunch of other lists. In fact, this one is mixed in low income plus low credit. So that's that list style. Low income, low credit. It's great. And you can test really any list. Just keep these in mind. These are the ones that work best for me. So see you guys in the next lesson. All right, guys, so we know which lists we should be calling. Now we've got to talk about where you can get accurate phone numbers for those lists. That's very important because you don't want to be paying somebody to be on the phone with bad numbers, talking to tenants or family members or anything like that. You want to be talking to the actual seller who owns the property, who can make a decision on whether to sell the property to you or not. So over the past year and a half, I've really figured out a few great methods to make sure that you're getting the best numbers possible. And to be honest, I'm sure a lot of you guys can probably agree, but this was one of the things that were holding me back the most. In fact, a few successful guys I knew who I had talked to years ago also wanted to get started, but they never figured out where to get good phone numbers, and it just stopped there. Didn't stop there for me. I pushed and pushed, tested a lot of different lists, spent a lot of money, wasted a lot of money on different poor number lists, and I broke it down for you guys so that you can do it and save some money. So the first place to get accurate phone numbers is Mojo Reverse Lookup. Now this is within the Mojo Dialer that we talk about in the Auto Dialer section. I don't know whether you've watched that yet or not, most likely not, but I'll show you that right now. So this is within the actual Mojo app. I just scrolled down to the list for simplicity's sake because down here you can see the reverse lookup number. Or button, excuse me. So you'll import your list as I show you in the training video on how to use Mojo for the auto dialer. And you will come here and select all. You'll import your list and everything, and then you'll click reverse lookup. Now I'm not actually going to reverse lookup all of these right now because that would take probably a good 3 to 5 minutes because there's a lot of records here. As you can see, 6,400. But I will go ahead and do one. Now, the stats on reverse lookup is typically you're looking to get around 30 to 50% of numbers. Some lists are a little bit worse. For example, this one I think I got around 15 or 20% of numbers back, so maybe around 1,000 to 1,500 numbers. But as you can see, they show up there. I haven't run this list through any other method. This is only reverse lookup. So I wanted you guys to see this little section right here. But let's say I want to reverse lookup. Instead of clicking select all, which you would do, I'm just going to click one, click reverse lookup. I'm going to check this box. What this is going to do is it's going to take out all do not call numbers from your list. That way you're not calling people who are on the do not call list. You don't want to do that. Don't want to risk getting sued or getting a fine or whatever can happen. It's just better to avoid numbers on the do not call list. So proceed. Wait in the queue, and there you go. So here you'll see how many contacts it searched, how many contacts were updated, as in how many numbers were found, and they added that number to the contact, and then how many were not found. So in this case, 0 were found, and 1, of course, is not found. So that is Mojo Reverse Lookup. All right, so I love that method, love reverse lookup, but the next way to get accurate phone numbers is through yourleadbroker.com, and for this you actually don't already need a list. This is what I was talking about in the last video on what list to call. This is the low income, low credit list, or you can really change up whatever you want, but this is the list that comes with phone numbers that are pretty accurate in my experience, and it's gotten me a great cost per lead. It's very cheap. So yourleadbroker.com. So this is the front of the website. You pay pretty much $50 a month, which includes 25,000 sales leads, and you actually get to keep those. So right now I have like 90,000 records that I get to pull, and I'm just got that monthly subscription rolling. It's only $50 a month. Great cheap way to get leads. You literally can pull them out in a CSV, upload them right into Mojo, and you'll have a big list ready to dial for a very cheap amount of money. And within this, I'm not going to take you into the back end. You can do that yourself. It's very simple, very easy. That's the only reason why. But because you can literally pull low credit, low income. You can choose when they bought their house. Are they a homeowner? How old are they? How much equity do they have? All the normal things that you'd pull from like ListSource and stuff like that, you can pull here. So go over to yourleadbroker.com, sign up. I don't care whether you're using it or not. As long as you have $50 a month to spare for good numbers, you're going to want to start rolling over those leads and just use them, because this is a great list. Low income, low credit list is amazing. Very easy to pull, very easy to get. And yeah, I definitely recommend this one. All right, so the next place to get very accurate phone numbers is by hiring a VA to skip trace your list, or you can do it yourself. It's going to take a long time if you do it yourself, and it'll probably cost you more in the deals lost because you don't have time to follow up with your leads. So it's better to hire a VA. Very easy on Upwork. Kind of the same strategy we'll talk about when we're looking for overseas VAs to call. Same general strategy. So you're going to use something like Intellius or White Pages. I really like Intellius. You just throw in their first name, their middle initial, and their last name, and their city and state. And you teach your VA to go in and search them. Let's say Randy M. Johnson. Okay, let's say Phoenix, Arizona. Here we go. So you can teach them to search, and then teach them when you actually get a paid membership. I don't use Intellius, but when you do get a paid membership, I believe it's $30 a month for unlimited searches. You can teach them to look for their address from the options and take down the info of that person who lived, or of his name with the address attached, if that makes sense. Very easy, very simple. It's just not quite the most cost-effective way to do things. Your VA will maybe be able to get you running lists for 10, 20 cents a lead, because it takes time to run each search. You might be able to get a little cheaper. Main cost is going to be in paying the VA. So it all depends on how many you can get them to pull. If you want to do a small list yourself that you're cold calling, this is a great option. Intellius.com. So that's that. So your other option is to run your mailing list through our skip tracing account for 50 cents a record. We have one of the best skip tracing services out there. You can't get them without having a full inspection come to your house. And you can run it through us for 50 cents per lead. So let's say you have a list of 10,000, costs you $5,000 through us, but you'll get great numbers. If you want to start small, you got a list of 2,000, you run it through us. It might cost you $1,000. But you will get the highest quality data. So a lot of the stuff that you'll get from, you might get your own account, but even if you get your own account, because you're not running, I doubt you're going to be running 50, 100,000 records per pull. So you're probably going to have a deal like 85 cents per record or $1 per record, something like that, with these higher end skip tracing accounts that have very, very accurate information. And, that's very expensive. So if you want to run your mailing list through our skip tracing account that already has tens of thousands of records going through it a month, which allows us to get down on price for you at 50 cents a record, let me know. You can send me an email at Jaelin@precisionpointequity.com. Subject, run mailing list. We'll do run/skip trace. So if you want to do this option, just email me, Jaelin@precisionpointequity.com, with the subject run or just skip trace mailing address. Or mailing list. So you're going to want to focus on your KPIs and decide how much you can spend on data. Obviously, right away, you're not going to want to go run a huge list with us. You're going to want to start out with yourleadbroker.com, some reverse lookup in there. You can totally get deals, get plenty of leads just like that. You want to start out with that and figure out what your cost per lead is. If it's low enough, what would your cost per lead have been if you would have spent money for that data? So, for example, let's say it cost me $1,000 to call 3,000 people in paying my calling agents. And let's say we get 100 leads. That's $10 a lead. And let's say 3,000, so another 1,500. So it costs us 2,500 instead of 1,000 if we would have spent that $1,500 on data through us. And let's say you got 100 leads, it'd be about $25 a lead. So if you could pay that $25 a lead, then you're going to try to get better data, because you'll probably actually get, no, you won't probably, you will get a lot more leads, just because you're getting in contact with those people who you wouldn't have been able to get in contact with the other cheaper ways of skip tracing people. So like these are they're not directly reported through credit bureaus and stuff like that. They're still very accurate, just not quite as accurate as here. So you'll be getting leads and numbers that nobody else is calling. That's the benefit to spending a little bit more. So you want to figure out what's your cost per lead, and can you afford to spend more on data to get those leads that other people are not getting in contact with. Another thing to understand is that better data will cost you more money, but it'll yield more leads. Again, you might contact that lead that nobody else has talked to because their number has been so hard to find. And then a good connect rate within Mojo, and you'll understand this when I go over the auto dialer, is around 5 to 12%. So here, this is for the past week for one of our lower volume agents. He does about 12,000 to 15,000 a month in dials. So he did 3,000 last week. And out of that, he got in contact with 4% of the numbers that he called. So a good contact is, again, 5 to 12%. So this was pretty low. I think it was a list issue that we had. We were calling just reverse lookup. So we didn't run skip tracing account. It wasn't your lead broker. Normally with your lead broker, we're around 8 to 10%. And with skip tracing, our expensive skip tracing, is more around 12 to 15%. So that's just my experience. That's my personal stats that I normally get. And all this means is that, your guy dialed 3,000 total numbers. He actually talked to 130 people. And then he also talked to 298 people who just didn't want to be called again. So, but I'm looking at contacts of people who were like, yeah, I know that house, I don't want to sell. Not people who are like, never call me again. So this is, people we've talked to. Maybe they weren't interested right away, but they just are people who are like, yeah, I'm the owner of that house. So that's that. We are at 4%, pretty low. Just keep in mind, good connect ratio is 5% to 12%. You can find this in your reports tab of Mojo. Again, we'll show that in the auto dollar section. So see you guys in the next lesson. Okay, so auto dialers, what are they? So basically what an auto dialer is we're going to upload a list to it. It's going to have all the phone numbers and the address. And in Mojo's case, you can actually get phone numbers by uploading just a list full of addresses with, of course, the property address and the mailing address. And it's going to automatically load that data and call them one by one, or another setting, which we'll talk about in another lesson. But it's going to call those automatically so that you don't have to sit there and dial new numbers every time. Now, Mojo is, it's a little bit costly, but when you consider what you're spending to direct mail and stuff like that, it really is not that bad. So for a single line dialer license, it's $89 a month plus that $10 lead manager. So $99 a month, $100 a month, not bad at all. And then you got the triple line dialer, which they actually dropped the triple line dialer price from like $159, I believe it was, maybe 6 months ago. And this is what we're going to be using for each agent. So triple line dialer is money. You honestly don't need a dialer to start out, but again, we're looking to turn this into a business. So we're going to be wanting to have triple line dialer. So for each person that you bring on, you're going to be paying about $150 a month for the license. Now, that's extremely cheap when you realize how cheap you're getting your leads. So don't be afraid of that. It's not daunting or anything like that. So let's go into the actual Mojo part. And just explore that, figure out how to use it, get very familiar so that you guys are ready when you open it up. So you'll sign up, create an account. Let me take you into mine. Okay, so here we are in my actual account. This is what it'll look like. There's a little line up at the top here that's being cut off by the video. It just has like account is right here, support is right here, refer a friend. You'll see it if you're at your account. So this is the home base. So whenever you want to add a list, you come up here, you just click create list. So we'll do that. Let's say we want to create Nashville low income. So I like to mark mine by the day or the week that we're calling it. So as you can see, I keep mine very fresh. I don't keep old lists in there because I just don't want it to get disorganized. I like to have, lists that we're currently calling in there. Otherwise, I delete them, and I have my own little, within the Explorer, the File Explorer on the PC or wherever you keep your stuff on Mac. I have a little folder specifically for cold calling lists, so I keep them all organized there. So let's say we want to create a list. We're going to press create, and then, there you go. We're going to come down here, import the file. So you'll select a file. Let me do that real quick. Okay, so I selected my my Phoenix list. You're going to click here if your first line is a header. Go next step, and then you'll just kind of map out your info. It's very simple, guys. In fact, I really don't want to waste your time here going through it because it's very easy. If you want to watch a help video, they literally have everything. It explains everything. It shows you how to do everything. But you're just going to map out all the info. First name, last name. Save both values as a single entry. Very easy. Address. And this is their address, the homeowner's mailing address. And then add in the property address and stuff like that. And you're going to, for you, there might not be a property address sheet, so you're going to want to click new miscellaneous field, property address. There you go. And then add a property city, blah, 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 if you don't have that already, because obviously you don't want to be calling about their home address if you're calling an absentee list, if that makes sense, because obviously you don't live there. So from there, you'll map that out, and then you'll connect it with your list. Select yourself as a manager. I've got currently 2 agents, as you can see. Just about actually to bring on 4 more. So we're ready. A huge lead flow. You guys are going to see each person generates around 20 leads per week. So you're looking at, anywhere from 160 to 200 leads with 2 people. So if you bring on 4, 5, 6 people, sometimes, your numbers might get a little bit less because as you're calling more and more lists and calling the same lists over and over, you're going to get less leads. So you might start getting 15 or 10 leads per person. But let's say you have a team of 5 that are each getting 15 leads a week. That's what 5 times 15 is, like 75 leads total per week. That's like 300 leads a month, if I'm correct. And that is a lot of leads. So that is a 6-figure, if not $1 million business right there. Just keep that in mind. In fact, it's probably closer to $1 million business. For me, 300 leads is where I need to be at to make $1 million. So with my numbers. So then you'll click finish import and your list is imported. That's that. All right, so I clicked finish import, and now you can see that when I click on this, it shows all of these. If I wanted to reverse lookup, select all, click reverse lookup. There we go. It's easy as that. So you're going to upload your list, get your data in there, do a reverse lookup if you're using that method, and then you're going to want to come over to settings, and you're going to want to I'm not going to pull it up because it'll show all my phone numbers and all that information. I just don't want it out there. But in settings, you're going to set up caller ID. Very easy. Again, they have tutorial videos for all of this within Mojo. It's you're paying well. Of course, they're going to teach you how to use their product. So in settings, you're going to set up a caller ID, and you're going to set up a callback message. So basically, when you're doing a triple line dialer, let's say it's dialing 3 people at once, and Johnny picks up, and then so does Susie. So Johnny picked up, I'm on the line with him. Susie picked up too. It's just going to be, it's going to play your callback message. So my callback message is, hey, and act like it's got connected. And it plays that message whenever it connects to a second person. And it just redials that person after you're finished with your first call. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, then you can watch their training videos here to figure out what a callback message is in a better way. But I think that I explained that to the best of my ability for you. So that's a callback message. A caller ID is basically the number that shows up. So you're not going to want to use your cell number. You're going to be getting blown up all day. You want to create a Google Voice number or a Vumber number, which you should know how to do both of those. If not, go to vumber.com, just create a number, and just set it to go straight to voicemail. That way, you're not... that way you're not getting a ton of calls all day. So, and then you can also choose to leave a voicemail and train your agents to drop a voicemail when they get to a voicemail box. I don't personally do that just because we get so many calls back that, yeah, maybe 1 out of 500 calls is a potential deal. You know, them calling back, leaving a voicemail. It's just an extra manpower. So maybe we will decide to do that in the future. For now, though, we're just sticking to the cold calling and focusing our efforts there and leaving no voicemails. So if we go to voicemail, we'll just click end. So, excuse me. Let me show you within the Power Dialer real quick. Okay, so once you go here and click Power Dialer, you can pull up, and again, before you click that even, you got to have your list selected here. Just make sure that's selected. Then you can click Power Dialer, and you're going to want to have the correct caller ID specified. Obviously, I have a bunch in there. Please don't call these numbers. You'll just go straight to voicemail. I probably won't even know you called them. Voicemail message, you don't want to pick any. Main callback, again, just want to record a quick like, hey, and just pretend like you got disconnected. And you could just actually press the plus and just record one right out of this. You could also add a caller ID right out of this instead of clicking that settings that we just looked at. So then you want to select the number of lines dialing. I like triple line. If you want to go a little slower, you can do single or double. It's up to you. It's just the total amount of numbers that it dials at one time. So the number of rings, I normally do 5. It doesn't really matter. You can use your calling script, but I don't do that. You can make it so it pops up the calling script right when the person answers. I don't do that. My guys are good enough. They're solid. So over here, just make sure this is selected. Call this list from where I last left off, starting with new leads first. So you're not going to want to pull up the list every time and start from bottom at the top. You want to start from where you left off last calling it. So just make sure that's selected. That will make sure that you're not redialing the same first 500 numbers a million times instead of continuing to the other 4,500 numbers in your list. So make sure this is selected. That's that. From there, you can click on Save As or Start Power Dialer. So saving as, we can create a calling profile. So we'll just call it Example. So I don't need to do this for my agents because they know how to handle this little area, but we'll just click Example. It was saved. Now we can X out here. Now we have a calling profile here. So you can actually go ahead and share those with your agents. So they can just come here, click Call, click Start Power Dial. It's very easy. Again, mine, they're pretty good. I don't even do the calling profile for them. So that is that. Very simple. Mojo's great and easy to use. If you need to add an agent, there's an account tab right above where the mouse is right now. You just can't see it because the video cuts it off. You just click that. You can add an agent. You can manage your subscriptions, all that kind of stuff. Just get used to the general interface. I showed you all the basics. Again, they have a lot of training videos within here, within support and just within help. And if you're still confused, then go through those. Very easy. I don't worry about literally everything I just mentioned to you guys is the only thing I worry about within Mojo. There's a lot of different things that you can explore if you want, but I use the bare minimum. I just keep it simple to get leads at a cheap cost, get deals. So I'll see you guys in the next training video. Okay, so in this lesson, I'm going to be showing you how to set up a VUMBR number for Mojo Caller ID. Now, this is important because I don't want you to have to be getting a ton of random calls to your cell number. You definitely do not want to have your cell number as a caller ID when you're using Mojo because number one, people are going to sometimes get angry over a call. And you do not want them harassing you a million times over on the phone. So remember, you want to set up a VUMBR. I'm on VUMBR right now. So the first step is to create an account. It's very cheap. It's like $9.99 a month and then $4 for a number. So just come up here to settings. You can't see it because I think the video cuts it off. But right up here is the settings. You'll see VUMBR. You'll see the inbox. You'll see settings right here. Click that. And it'll pull you up to settings. And I have a bunch of numbers. Just please don't call any of our numbers because they're to my acquisition manager's phone. So I'm going to go to Manage VUMBR. I'm going to click Add VUMBR. We have the maximum number of VUMBRs for our account plan. But you'll be able to pick a phone number. You'll be able to name it. You'll be able to select a forwarding number. And then it'll be created. And then you go back to settings. You pick that number and come here to phones. And now here's how you're going to want to set up your settings for your Vumber number. So you're going to want to have your cell phone here, but you're not going to want to have that selected for the cold calling number. You're going to want to send them either to voicemail or to a busy signal, because obviously we don't check voicemails personally. You can do that, but I just find it's a lot of wasted time because people have no clue why they're calling, why we are calling. So we don't bother to check the voicemail. We just call that list a couple times throughout, a month, 2 month, 3 month time period. So we'll eventually get in contact with them. So I don't check voicemails, but you can check and have it be sent to voicemail. You're not going to want, now I have our voicemail uploaded. You're not going to want any recording in there. So you just delete that and make sure you have no voicemail in there. You just want it to be the normal voicemail. Or you can send them to a continuous ring or busy signal. I typically normally have it on just the normal, hello, the user you've dialed is not available. Please leave a voicemail after the message. And it's not me saying it, it's the pre-recorded machine voice. Or you can do a busy signal. That's the other thing that I typically do, just because, we are on the other line, and that way they don't end up calling back a million times more. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up your cold calling number. This is going to be important so that you don't waste time and resources on the sellers who are calling you who are not interested in selling their property. We've already scrubbed for DNC. Now all you got to worry about is dealing with the sellers who are somewhat angry because you called them. And you'll definitely have those sellers. Not to say that there are going to be a lot of them. You just don't want them bothering you if they call you 2 or 3 times. You don't want your acquisitions manager wasting time checking their voicemails, talking to them, because you have 2 or 3 people calling you multiple times a day, every day. It can get to be a headache. So you just want to leave those voicemails to go. People will call back. They will say, "Hey, why'd you call?" Just ignore it and move on. Unless you're a one-man show and you're just cold calling yourself, might be worth it to call them and let them know, "Hey, I called you because I'm interested in purchasing a property in your neighborhood, blah, blah, blah." But for our team, it's just not worth the resources to go back and look through those voicemails, look through those text messages, and try to explain what we're trying to do at that point. It's better for us to just recall the list in another month or 2 months and see if we can get a hold of them then. So keep all that in mind. Use Vumber, vumber.com. It's very cheap, very inexpensive. Another alternative to this is Google Voice. I don't like that as much because you can't have different numbers for different cities. It's just one number connected to your Google account, and that's that. So I like Vumber a lot. I would recommend that. There's a lot of different options. Just find one that will allow you to send them straight to a general voicemail or a busy signal, and you're good. So this is the cheapest option out there, and I'll see you guys in the next training video. All right, guys, so how do you triple your leads cold calling with one simple trick? Now, we just talked about it in the auto dialer video, but don't overlook it. It's to use a triple line dialer. Now, it might seem crazy, a little bit hectic to dial 3 numbers at once in the auto dialer. But I'm telling you, you're going to call triple the amount of people and you will get triple the amount of leads. Now, if you're calling an extremely hot list of like 200 of the most distressed people in your market, maybe you want to do single line. But if you want to get a large amount of leads and get the lowest cost per lead possible, you're going to want to use a triple line dialer within Mojo or within another auto dialer that you choose to use. So just keep this in mind. This is a quick, very simple video. I just want you to know that you will double or triple or more the amount of leads that you get by using a triple line dialer because of the simple fact that you're calling a lot more people in the same amount of time. So keep that in mind. If you're like, I don't even want to risk, 2 people answering at the same time. No, call all 3, use their callback message, and just explain, hey, when it connects to the second person, hey, I'm so sorry. I think we got disconnected. I was just calling about your property, 123 Main Street. Continue with, that's the script that we share with you guys. So keep that in mind. See you guys in the next video. All right, so how do we avoid getting in trouble when we're cold calling? We're calling tens of thousands of people every month, if not hundreds of thousands sometimes. How do we avoid getting in trouble when cold calling? So the way to do this is it's very simply scrubbing your list for do not calls. So there's a lot of different tools you can use for scrubbing. Let me pull up one. So this is the dncproject.org. THEDNCproject.org. You can literally just drop your .csv file, your list of phone numbers, and get them scrubbed. Very easy, very simple, very quick. Literally takes minutes. So do this. Let's say we have, 5,000 numbers. There you go. DNC scrub price is only $57. Now, if you ask me, $57 is worth the release of having to worry about somebody coming back at you for calling. Now, some people could argue, we're calling to buy their house. We're not calling to sell them anything. So talk to an attorney, see what they think, see what they say. But if you really want to be safe, you want to avoid all legal trouble, just I would recommend, just scrubbing for do not call numbers. Again, just using the dncproject.org. All right, guys, see you in the next training video. Okay, guys, so here's where the money is made. It's very simple. When you read it, you're going to be like, what? Is that simple? But it's all in delivery, and it's all in understanding the script. So when you're calling these people, you don't want your agent spending minutes with people who are not interested in selling. You want to figure out whether they're interested in selling or not within the first 5 to 10 seconds or sooner. So it goes like this. So seller answers, we're dialing in Mojo. Seller answers, and you say, hi, is Johnny available? Yeah, who is this? Yeah, this is Jaelin with Precision One Equity. I'm calling about your property at 123 Main Street. Like asking a question, kind of generating some curiosity there. They say, what about it? You say, we're actually looking to buy in the area, and I wanted to give you a call and see if you might be open to a cash offer on your property. And if they say no, I can definitely appreciate that. Thank you for your time. And if they say yes, then we'll say something like, great, do you mind if I ask a few quick questions about the property so I can get a better feel for it? And then we fill in the web form within Podio, which you'll see in that training video, and how to integrate it with your CRM. If they ask what we're offering, because sometimes people are saying, well, yeah, I might be interested. What are you offering? The agent will say, well, typically we don't run numbers until we have interest on your end, but I'd love to ask you a few quick questions about the property so that we can make a more accurate offer, if that's all right. And then they say yes or they say no. And if they say yes, we're asking these questions. Are we in a situation where we have tenants, or is the property vacant? And if they live in the property, they'll tell you what kind of condition is the property in, what's the ballpark number they might be looking to get, and how quickly do you want to close if we can make a deal. And then they'll say, perfect, I'm going to pass the info to our acquisition specialist. You'll be hearing from him soon. We're looking forward to possibly buying your house. Then we hang up. That's it. Literally that simple, guys. You just got to make sure that you train your agents, or if you're calling, you got to make sure that you're quick to the point, and you get to this line in 5 to 10 seconds. Sometimes it'll take a little longer. Depending on how long it takes for them to respond to everything. But as long as it's not taking like 30 minutes or 30 seconds, 60 seconds per call, you're good. Just keep it quick, keep it short, keep it sweet, and figure out whether they're interested in selling within the first couple sentences. So see you guys in the next video, and you'll be able to find this video, I believe, below in the attachment section or somewhere on this page. So see you guys in the next one. Okay, so I'm within Podio, and I'm in a seller leads app right now. I cut it off just a bit because obviously all my leads are, well, they're all our leads. So here, to the left, you can see, if you're familiar with Podio at all, then great. If you use something else like FreedomSoft or any of these other things, all we're doing is using web forms, and most of those have them. Just figure out how to create a web form within your CRM, and you should be good. So I'm going to show you right now how to actually create that web form. Within the Podio section, you can see the Leads app, and then you come here, click on this little settings tab, and then click web form, and I'll take you there right now. Okay, guys, so this is a web form for our Memphis Leads app. Perfectly fine. When we work Memphis, this is what we do. We have different leads apps for each market that we work. So down here, you can see the different sections that we include, in our our web form. So obviously our actual Podio includes a lot more. All this data right here, you can see the app fields that we can choose from. I choose the basics, so you can follow what I need, or you can decide what you need to your outbound call agent to to collect on the first call, and you can include that within the web form. So here I just collect name, I collect are they interested or not, I collect their phone number, the property address, the reason for selling and condition, their best price, is it occupied, as in tenants, occupied or vacant, the number of bedrooms or bathrooms, their best callback time, and any miscellaneous notes. And then I have the caller select their name, so it shows that the lead came from them, and also the campaign that they were calling, so whatever list they were calling. So that is very simple. And then I have a shareable link, so I literally just give them this link. It's very easy, very simple. It just pulls this up. They can enter that info and submit the lead, and it'll refresh and submit the lead to you, and they can have a fresh, clean slate. That way you don't have to have any of your calling agents access anything within your Podio. They're literally just getting this link and seeing only this info that they're going to be entering. So that's that. Very simple, very easy to do. And obviously if you want to edit that, you can do that within this web form generator, and just select which different fields you want, whatever you need. And then after submission, you can make it so that it goes back to the, well, this is what you have to do actually. You have to copy this link up here and paste it here and redirect them to that. Because that way when when your caller submits that lead, it's going to take them to the web form again with a fresh opportunity to enter another lead. You don't want them getting a thank you page because it's your caller. They're entering leads that you're calling. So make sure you do this. Just copy this, bring it down after submission, select this, and paste it right there. So just choose your app fields. Make sure your Podio includes whatever you want in your seller lead section. This isn't a course on how to organize your Podio, so if you don't have a Podio, I'd suggest learning it or getting FreedomSoft or something like that. But and again, FreedomSoft, all those other things have web forms. I guarantee it. Just figure out how to make a web form and get a shareable link, and give that link to your callers to enter the info. So it's that simple, guys. See you in the next video. Okay, so for this video, I want to talk about why cold calling beats direct mail every single time. Because if you're currently a real estate investor, or maybe you're thinking about getting into real estate investing and you took this course because you want to know how to get sellers quickly for a very low cost who are very interested in selling their property at a discount, most likely you've been told, well, do direct mail, send mail to sellers. And direct mail definitely still works. So, in fact, all marketing streams work in real estate investing, or at least most, depending on your market. But a lot of people accept this as the best marketing stream, the king, because it's very easy to scale up. It's systemizable. You can send hundreds of thousands of mail at the click of a button. But people haven't quite realized that you can systemize cold calling and make it just as scalable and just as easy to follow as direct mail. And people don't understand that. So mark my words, right now is the best time to get into cold calling and build a team, because in a few years, once people are getting used to the fact that you can systemize this and they start seeing other people succeeding, a lot of the attention is going to shift from direct mail to cold calling. Because, guys, I'm not exaggerating here. For cold calling, the lead cost is normally anywhere from a fourth to a tenth of the cost per lead. So if you're getting $100 cost per lead on direct mail, and this is my personal numbers, this isn't theory, this isn't anything else, this is my personal numbers in my business, in the same market, on the same lists, I get anywhere from 1/4 to 1/10 of the cost per lead. That means that if I'm getting a cost per lead of $100, I'm normally, in fact, cost per lead normally is I'm getting around 10 to 15, maybe $20 tops per lead for cold calling. That means that if you suck and convert 1 in 100 compared to converting 1 in 25 with direct mail, you still make more money. So if you're paying $100 per lead for direct mail and you convert 1 in 25, it's going to cost you about $2,500 to get that deal in marketing, correct? If you pay $10 and it takes you 100 leads, you're only paying $1,000. That's less than half the cost of the direct mail lead. That's if you suck and get one in 100. Let's say your $20 cost per lead. In the same market, you get 100. Normally, it doesn't go much higher than that at all, unless you really are just slacking and you're not updating lists and all that kind of stuff. If you're following the system and you're keeping up with it, you should be able to be getting a $10 to $20 cost per lead if you're getting a $100 cost per lead in direct mail. So if you convert 1 in 100 and you're at $20 cost per lead, that's still $500 cheaper than direct mail. So you still make more money even if you suck and you convert 1 in 100. Guys, I kid you not. There was like a month, maybe a month and a half for me where I literally would only follow up with leads that looked hot that came straight in from my outbound callers. About a year ago, didn't have an acquisitions guy, was making good money. I'm like, screw it. And guess what? I was still 10x profitable on my marketing spend. I literally spent, for every like $5,000 I spent, I would make anywhere from 30 to 50K in revenue. That was calling back literally only the motivated ones. And I think I was converting like 1 in 80 or 1 in 100, somewhere around there. And I was still making a great return. So even if you suck, even if you really, really suck, you still make more money. And the other cool thing is you're calling the leads before your competitor's mail piece is even reaching the seller. So if you're competing with somebody and they mail the list the same time you start calling the list, you're getting in touch with those leads because it's gonna take their list, their mail 2 to 3, sometimes 5 to 7 days to hit the seller's mailbox. And by that time, the seller already knows you and should like and trust you. Depends on your team and your sales skills, but they should already know of you. So you've already made an offer most of the time before your competitors are even getting their mail to the seller. Keep that in mind. You can literally contact a full list tomorrow. It's a powerful thing, and that's why cold calling is amazing. So another thing to keep in mind, some sellers do not update their mailing information. That means that a lot of these mailing lists that you're hitting don't have updated addresses for you to send mail to. So the awesome thing is when you actually skip trace, like with the 50 cents per record skip trace option with us, you actually get their updated address as well, and that's tracked with credit bureaus and stuff like that. So, and hopefully we still offer that by the time you're watching this. I'm not sure. We just got to decide if the source that we're using can handle even more volume than what we're already doing, stuff like that. So, some sellers do not update their mailing information. That means that you might have, out of a list of 1,000, there's maybe 100 people who don't have an updated mailing address. And the average Joe is just pulling that list and sending mail. They're not ever getting in touch with those 100 people. And those 100 people are never getting their mail piece. So the second you call those people, they're amazed because they've never talked to someone who wants to buy their off-market property. See, you're contacting the people that nobody else is getting in touch with. It's pretty amazing. I hope that makes sense because it's a really powerful thing to realize. So the next thing is you can reach a lot more people for the same cost. It might cost you $50,000 to reach 100,000 people with direct mail. So, because it's around 50 to 75 cents, sometimes 90 cents, depending on how much volume you're doing. We'll call it 75 cents. So maybe it costs you actually $75,000 plus any list costs to reach 100,000 people. But we'll just say for the postage and letter, we're paying $75,000 to reach 100,000 people. For cold calling, it might only cost you $5,000 or $10,000 to reach that same amount of people. So there's a lot of power in that. You can really reach a lot more people with cold calling. And then you also have to understand it's just as scalable. I know I mentioned this, but it truly is just as scalable as direct mail as long as you follow the system. And it's really actually more scalable because I can literally, for direct mail, you got to have a mail house who can handle it, who can mail the list quickly. And then you're worried about, are they going to screw up my number? Are they going to, send to the wrong address? But cold calling is literally just as scalable because I'll show you in this course, you can literally have a team of people calling like in 2 days or 3 days or a week max. You can have great American people calling in like a week or 2 weeks after you start looking. You can really start right away. And you can call any list instantly and you can adjust. Let's say, so for direct mail, I might have to, so you can you can adjust your marketing based on results. And guys, there's so many more benefits that I'm not even mentioning. You just have to realize this so you actually take action. I want you guys to set up your cold calling system and start getting leads cheap and start getting deals. But you can adjust your marketing based on results. You know, if I've got a list that's costing me $30 a lead cold calling, and another list that's giving me 15, maybe I want to start putting all my resources into calling that type of list that's getting me a 15 cost per lead. Direct mail, I might have to drop $10,000 in direct mail or $5,000 or $2,000 minimum to realize if a list is good or not. With cold calling, you just put a caller on there for a week, maybe cost you a few $100, and you can figure out if it's good or not. And you have, at the very least, a ton of leads to work. So it's funny because now I complain about a $30 cost per lead when I send direct mail, I'm getting like $150, $200 cost per lead. It's crazy. Sometimes maybe $100, $125, but that's on the good end. Average is more like $150 to $200. I paid as much as $300 per lead on direct mail. The most I've ever paid is dialing in San Francisco, cold calling in the most competitive market, or one of the most competitive markets in the whole entire country. We were paying $40 a lead, $40. So if you can beat those numbers with direct mail, hit me up because I want to know what lists you're sending to. So keep that in mind. See you guys in the next video. Alright, so now I want to show you guys a little secret list that I have on ListSource that is one of my favorite lists to hit. I'm going to roll through this because if you don't know the exacts on ListSource, watch the ListSource video on high equity, absentee, and owner occupants. That goes really deep. I'm going to breeze through it. It's just very easy to pull this list. So again, county, state is Arizona, county is Maricopa, just for this example. We'll go to property. We're going to plug in a couple of the same things. So year built, we're going to do, as soon as it loads, going to go 1900 to 1990, or excuse me, 1980. All right, and once that's finished up, then we come up here to property, not site and waterfront influence. We go to property type. We go to single family. All right, and then once that's done, we can do lot again, but I don't typically do that. What I do here is I go last market sale price, and I go unknown. For some reason, it's not giving me the counts, but I'm not sure what that error is. But I go unknown here on last market sales price, and then I come up to equity percentage, and I go unknown as well. I'm not sure what this error is, but again, just throw in the year built, then throw in the property type, then go to last market sale price, unknown, go to equity percentage, unknown, and then buy your list. You also can go to absentee, just do absentee. This is called the no data list. You can do just absentee no data, but I like to pull them all because no data list is my hottest list, to be honest. So again, just to recap, we did year built. We come up here to property type, do single family or whatever type of property type you want. Then we go to last market sale price, unknown, and then we go to equity percentage, unknown. So the reason I pulled this list is because when it says last market sale price, unknown, that means people did quit claim deeds. So they family transfers, just sort of messy transfers where that property could be a trouble property that people don't really record. When somebody doesn't record the purchase of a property correctly, that means that property likely is in some sort of distress. Maybe it's a family probate situation or whatever the situation may be. That's why we like this list. It's a no data list. And then equity obviously just includes the confusion on, do they have equity or not. And actually, if it gives you, if it only gives you like 500 to 1,000 records, you might want to just take out the equity unknown and just do last market sales prices unknown and have that be your only filter besides obviously the basic year bill and property type. We don't want to do recording date. We don't want to do anything else. Just unknown last market sales price, and if you want unknown equity as well, depending on how big your list is with just the unknown sales price. This is a great list. Try it out. Again, can't guarantee it's going to work in your specific market. Every market's different, but I can tell you in all the markets that I've tried it in, it's probably my best list. over everything. So great list, great secret list, and I think this video alone will give you, probably make you tons of money if you actually implement it. So I would definitely add this list to your marketing arsenal, and I will see you guys in the next training video. All right, so in this video, we're going to be going over how to pull the absentee and high equity owner occupant list from ListSource. These are my main lists. Obviously, if you're just starting out with a fresh marketing budget and you don't have a big marketing budget, you want to start with more motivated records like the vacant list or like the tax default and empty nester list from Revo Gateway. But once you're ready to really start marketing consistently, these can be great lists to, provide a steady amount of large lists to target. So first things first, okay, I did not mean to click that, but we'll go back to that. So first things first, when you're creating your account, I'm using an old account here that I no longer buy lists from, because if you saw my new account, you'd be targeting the same zip codes as me, trying to copy me, which would just be a mess for everybody, okay? So, but my new account, what I did is Yellow Letter HQ has this membership where you can get 3-cent ListSource leads. So it's only $100 a month, and as long as you're pulling a ton of lists, it's totally worth it, because on ListSource, if you just have a normal account, it's like 17 cents a record. And for my first year or two, I was wasting a ton of money paying full price on ListSource. So this is a great option to save a ton of money pulling your list. So before you pull anything on ListSource, I would definitely recommend that you get this membership on Yellow Letter HQ. All you need to do is go to shop, go to mailing list here, and it will pull that ListSource membership up. I'm not going to wait for it to load because it's not really necessary. As you can see there, it loaded. But so ListSource. So as far as it goes, log in, click the create your own that we just clicked here. You'll come up to this screen. So geography. So let's say, for example, we want to, you can target zip code, you can target city. We're going to just do county just for the sake of this example. We'll do Arizona and we'll do Maricopa County, okay? I normally ignore the mortgage section. I never mess with that. Property. So first thing I like to do is come down to year built, and I do from 1900 to 1980. Rarely do I ever get a deal on a property that was built, more recently than 1980, because this is the area of properties being built where now they're starting to need repairs. So there's a higher likelihood that the seller would have owned it for a long time, number one, but also that it would need repairs. And that kind of thing. So that's why I like to filter for that. Next thing I like to do is come up to property type, and if you, again, I start at the bottom because it's just kind of easiest, but property type, come down here to single family. I only typically target single family. Sometimes I'll do condos and duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes, which are 2, 3, and 4 unit properties, but I like to just focus, to keep it simple, generally on single family residential. So yeah. You can choose pre-foreclosure. You can do pre-foreclosure, but I normally don't target those because they're very small lists and tons of people target them. So personally, I would not recommend that you target pre-foreclosure. Again, I can't say what's going to work in your market for sure, so you might want to try it for yourself and figure out what works best for you. So obviously you got a ton of options here, but the next thing I like to look for when I'm pulling this list is last market recording date. So 01/01/1900. This is just the last time the property was transferred from one person to another person. So, we could do last market sale date, but we also want to include people mainly just people who have transferred the property altogether. So it's sales and people who have transferred through to family members. So just keep that in mind. So typically I like to do from 1900 to 2000 for both absentee and owner occupied. I hit absentee first, depending on how many records I want to hit, and then I move to owner occupied, but we'll get to that in just a second. So last market recording date, typically 1900 to 2000. That's going to decrease this number significantly. Go ahead and pause it while it's processing. All right, and we're back, and as you can see now, that has filled in, and it's down to 100,000 records. Now, I don't typically filter for the equity amount, because if they've owned it for 18 years, there's a good chance that it has equity. Not to mention, I can't imagine that it's very easy for these companies to figure out exactly how much equity someone has, so I just don't want to get all, chopped up in my list and add those in. But one thing that you can do if you live in a market where you only want to target a certain price of property is you can come to the last market sale price and you can do, $1 to $200 to $300,000. That way you don't get the crazy price, or you can do $50,000 to $200 to $300,000. Whatever price range you think is best in your market is what I recommend doing. I don't typically filter for that because in my markets that I work, I know the zip codes and I know all the types of prices that we can sell properties at. So there's really no amount of property sale that I wouldn't want to deal with. So even if it's a total, hood house, or if it's the multi-million-dollar mansion, I really don't care. I'll mess with it all. And we want leads on all properties. So as you can see, you could also filter for bedrooms, bathrooms, stuff like that, and get it going. Now, one other thing I like to mention also is the lot area. So typically I don't like to deal with properties on huge lots. I like to really just deal with properties that are really in the city. So I'll do from 1 to 10,000, because anything more than 10,000 is typically not really a city property. Now, don't take this wrong. If you live in a place where there's a ton of really great neighborhoods with big lots, that's fine. Then add those in. But for me, I like to focus on what's simple. So I like to keep it under 10,000 square feet. Because typically those properties are in subdivisions where it's easier to comp and figure out the value. So I like to go from 1 to 10,000 square feet, depending on what area I'm in, and whatever's going on. So I will pause this and let it process. So it's been processed, and as you can see, that number dropped quite a bit more. So there's more things that you can filter if you really wanted to. If you want to get granular, you can do bedrooms, bathrooms. You can do basement type, whatever you want to do. But this is generally what I do before moving on to the next section. Now I skip demographics, I skip foreclosure, and I go to options. So like I said, this is a really big list. This is all of Arizona though. It's a ton of people. So if you want a smaller list, then only target a city, or you can add in, for example, in the property section, we did 1900 to 2000. Maybe you want 1900 to 1990. Those are people who have owned it for 30 years almost. So I come down here, typically I exclude trustee-owned properties, and I make sure corporate are excluded. You can include trustee-owned properties, but typically it's hard to find phone numbers to call if you guys do any cold calling or stuff like that. But if you mail, then maybe you can include those. So I like to take those out. Obviously we have a big list, so the processing is taking some time. So let me pause it while it processes. All right, so we lost another few records, and we're down to 60,000. Next thing we want to do is, if you want to pull only absentee, which like I said, if you don't have a huge marketing budget, you don't want 60,000 names. That's pretty expensive. I think that's $2,000 if my math's right. If my math is wrong, then don't bother with me, but I think it's around $2,000 for that. So maybe you don't want to spend a lot on a huge list. You don't have a ton of money for marketing. Like I said, maybe you want to start with a list of only 1,000 people to market to, like vacants or tax defaults. Go for that. But this is for once you start really having a consistent marketing budget. So absentee owned. And I'll pause it while it's processing. All right, so we're back, and as you can tell, this number dropped a ton. All we did was just filter for absentee. Now, if you want owner occupied, you just click that, or you can click no preference and it'll include both of them. But I like to generally purchase them at different times, keep them separate. So the final thing we're going to do is go down to here to both, and keep in mind real quick before I move on, Maricopa County is a huge county, a massive county. Most of you guys, by the time you filter this down, are only going to have 1,000 to 3,000 records, unless you're in a really big city like LA or Phoenix or Philadelphia or whatever it is. We'll come here to both mailing and property address complete, because we want both of those to be complete. All right, so that's finished. All we did was click that, and now we're going to come down here to purchase lists. You can also save criteria if you want to buy it later, but so here we are. You can select over here. You can add additional fields. So like if you wanted to know, sometimes what we'll do is we'll add equity. Now a lot of these on this list for some reason have a cost to it, which I don't typically like to add things that have extra costs. As you can see over here, it would add some amounts. So equity normally is free. I'm not sure if that's just a new update they just recently did, but I just bought a list probably a week ago and I got free equity. So you can add those to order as well. I wouldn't do that since it actually costs a penny extra and it's really not necessary. It's just in case you get the lead and you want to go back to your list later, which rarely do we even do. So you can work with this, but you don't have to. So next thing I do is come down here to remove duplicate property mailing addresses. That way, if there's a person who owns 4 or 5 properties, you only get one record for them because you're going to be contacting them anyways. You're not going to send 4 letters to that person, the same house. You want to just really, it saves you money on the records too. So you're going to remove duplicate mailing addresses. All right, so about 5 minutes later, it's still processing. But I realized I only had really one more thing to share with you guys. After that's done, you realize you can also purchase a partial list here, and you can suppress other lists. So if you want to buy this list, but you've already bought some Phoenix lists, you can suppress the records that you've already paid for by clicking this tab, and it's very easy to do. So all you do here is just check out, and as you can see, now it's finally done, and we have 7,000 total. Cost of this is $1,358. Now keep in mind, this is without the 3-cent cost. So you're looking at let's see. Well, I don't know exactly how much per record that is. I'd have to pull up the calculator, but I'm sure you can do the math. You can also click View Sample Records here. You'll pull up this window, and you'll be able to see some example records from the list. And there we go. That's it. Very simple, very straightforward. That's your absentee and high equity owner-occupant lists. So, all right. So how do we pull lists on Rebo Gateway? So there's 2 main types of lists that I like to pull here, which are tax defaults and empty nesters. So let's just say, for example, we're King County, Washington, picked a random city, Tacoma, Washington. Now, obviously, if you want empty nesters, we're going to select that. We're going to go for tax defaults right now, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like for empty nesters. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click Filter. And then what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to make sure single family residence is the only one selected. If you'd like to work condos or multifamily, that's your own deal. Select those if you decide to go that route, but we typically only market single family. And then I like to include both owner-occupied and absentee owners for tax delinquent properties because, if they owe on taxes, that means that they're probably in some sort of bind financially. Not that we're taking advantage of them, but we want to help them clear that debt. So, you don't want to just knock out absentee owners or owner-occupied. You want to talk to everybody, in my opinion. If you want a smaller list, the hottest people to call to market to would be absentee owners. But if you want just everybody, a really solid list, I would go both. And then I like to come over here, and I like to do years built from 1900 to 1980. Very rarely do I ever do a deal where the property was built more recently than 1980. Maybe you have a business model that focuses on newer properties, maybe subject twos. I don't talk about that in the course, and there's really no need to worry about that. If you're going to be implementing what I teach you guys in the course, typically the years built from 1900 to 1980 or 1800 to 1980 if you're worried about catching the really, really old properties. But this is really the sweet spot here. And then I like to do purchase date from 1/1/1900 to depends on what I'm targeting. For tax delinquents, I like to go all the way up to typically 2012 because that gives us about 2013 now that it's 2018. So I want to get about 5 years of time to purchase. This would be I like to do 01/01/2013. This would give us about 5 years from the time of purchase for them to build up some equity. Now, if you want to guarantee high equity, like I said, some of us market to a lot of names. I like a lot of names on my list. So if you like to keep the list small, only high equity, then you can do 01/01/2000. That's 18 years of ownership. That's more than enough to build up equity, but I like to include everybody up to 2012 or 2013 typically because I don't want to knock out the people who bought recently, and maybe they bought cash or put a considerable amount down, or maybe the area is appreciated and it's worth a lot more than when they bought it in 2012 or whenever it was. So just keep that in mind. I don't mess with any of this over here. And then typically, depending on what area you're in, you might want to put a maximum lot size. So typically it's really hard for me personally to run comps on a property that's over a half an acre. So you might want to, put filter in lot size depending on how big the properties are in your area. If your areas are full of properties with half an acre to an acre, like you're in the Midwest or whatever, then work those. But typically for me, I like to keep up to really 10,000 square feet of lot size to keep those kind of urban properties going that are easier to comp and easier to figure out the values of. And then if you're in an area that has some not so great areas, maybe you want to put an assessed value with a minimum of 30,000. That way, if the property is assessed at 15,000, it's in, kind of a war zone. You want to avoid it. You can always throw that in as well. I don't typically do that because I know what zip codes I want to target on mine. And then we want to click only tax defaults, and we'll see how many it shows up for us. Loading. I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch it load. All right, so I did the search, it stopped loading, and for some reason in Tacoma, it did not have any tax delinquents. So some cities don't report their taxes the same way, and you won't be able to get the tax delinquent leads for that city. So I just went to Seattle, which is the big city in this area, I guess. And Tacoma did not have any, but Seattle has 810. So the thing that sucks about Rebo Gateway that I specifically don't like is that you can only export a up to 1,000 new records. So if you had, let's say 2,000, for example, in Phoenix, we typically have 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 tax delinquent leads. You need to separate them through zip code. So just keep that in mind. You have to actually export through zip code where there's only 100 or 200 records per zip code. That way you can stay under that 1,000 limit. So from there, we go to Rebo Marketing here. When we want to download, we want to go to Data Export, and we're going to export as a CSV. As you can see, it pops up down here. Then we have the list in CSV format. There you go. You've got the name, you've got the address, the unit, the city, the state, and all this other information. And typically, honestly, all this is just kind of junk, so I like to take all this out. And then we'll take the legal description, the lot number, the tract name, all of this, really up to, we just want the mail zip. We don't want the lender info. We don't want the year built. We don't really want the lot size. We already covered for those. We don't want the structure size. We want the bed or bath. Right, I'm not sure why this has two names, but we don't want the seller either. I don't know why that says that. We want the assessee owner's name. Then we got the property address. We don't need any of this. And we've got the mail address. So clean up your list so that you just have the name, property address, the mail address, and you're good. And save it as whatever you want in whatever folder you want, and you have your list. So also, of course, we like to do empty nesters. Now, if you don't know what empty nesters is, all that means is it's someone who had kids who no longer live with them. So let's say I had a kid, they turned 20 and they moved out to their 18 or 20 or whatever it is, however old they are, they moved out of the property. Now I'm an empty nester, quote unquote. So again, you can filter it like we did, or you can filter it however you want. Obviously, you don't want only tax defaults. Typically empty nesters are owner occupied, but I keep both those in just in case. The year built, you can do the purchase date on these. Typically I like to do the 18-year ownership on these, just because we want to ensure that they've owned the property for some time. Maybe there's some wear and tear in there because they're not as motivated as the tax delinquent leads. And let's see how many of these come up in Seattle. Now again, you want to in the count, I have every county pretty much because I purchased a more expensive price point on Rebo Gateway. But if you guys just do the regular Rebo Gateway plan, it's like $40 a month per county, so you really only need 1 or 2 counties. You don't need all counties like me. But just keep in mind, on this platform, you can only export 1,000 leads at a time. As a list to mail or to call or whatever you're going to do. So you're going to want to split them up, via zip code or through zip code. So we have 20,000 here, so obviously we can't take all 20,000 out at once. We need to split it up via zip code, or or however you want to do it. Maybe you want to split it up from 1900 to 1990, and then 1990 to 2000, if that makes sense. So split it up via zip code typically is the way I like to do it, because you can just look up a list of zip codes in Seattle or a list of zip codes in Phoenix, and just look up each zip code, and each zip code will probably only have under 1,000 records, so you can pull each zip code's amounts. So those are both great lists to pull. I hope that made the process a lot easier on pulling lists from Rebo Gateway. They're a great resource. It's very affordable, and I definitely recommend using them. So I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, so we mentioned in the beginning of the course that one of the most important things to having a successful cold calling part of your business and getting cheap leads and getting deals is going to be having great agents. And you're going to need to know where to find those agents. So I use a combination of all these. I'll talk about my exact strategy in just a second after I go through each one individually. So the first thing I use is Upwork. Now, some people are going to say, oh, no, you can't find any quality callers on Upwork. People overseas can't call sellers. They suck, blah, blah, blah. My experience has been the opposite. I actually love using Upwork VAs, more specifically in the Philippines, to make cold calls to sellers. They're cheap. Pay them around $5 an hour. And when you consider it, sounds really low to us, but in the Philippines, minimum wage or around that number is around $3 an hour. So you're actually giving them a pretty solid number at $5 an hour. That's a good amount of money to be making for a lot of these people. And a lot of them are asking for less than that, so I like to surprise them with $5 or $6 an hour and get them really motivated, and let them know that, most of the time I'll do well, actually we'll talk about, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I want to cover this in a good amount of time, and then you can see how to pay them in the other training lesson, specifically on how to pay them. But the point is you can find quality callers there for a cheap price. I love Upwork, and this is actually my ad here. So you got the job details. I just keep the same ad running now. I've tried it multiple times, and it works every time. I love it. And right now I have one person from Upwork, and then I'll talk about it in a second. But so this is the ad that I use to find that Upwork caller. So we're looking to hire group telemarketers, blah blah blah. There you go. You have the exact ad, the skills that I put in there. It's more than 6 months. I want them working more than 30 hours a week, and I'm looking for an entry-level person. I don't want someone charging $20 an hour to do cold calls. You don't need with this. It's really not as much skill as it is just doing the dang calls. Obviously, you need to be trained. They need to have a decent script. They need to be a decent on the phone, but they don't need to be a rock star. You want your rock star actually, closing deals for you. These people don't need to be amazing on the phone. So this is it. You get a lot of proposals. You're going to get probably overwhelmed. Interview a few, pick the best one. And that's exactly what I did. So, yeah, that's Upwork. Number 2 is network marketers. So before real estate, was in network marketing. And a lot of network marketers are used to working from home. They're used to making $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. And, a lot of them are, they go through tough times. It's just like running a business. Sometimes some months you don't make a lot of money. So they might want a cold calling job from home, low commitment on their end. Well, technically, you want to find a network marketer who needs the money. That way they're committed to getting that paycheck every week. I pay all my people weekly. So you want to find somebody who does need that money, and, and then you also have the non-commitment, because they're used to switching up opportunities. So if you need to fire them, they're not producing, which is, in my opinion, the only reason you should fire them is if they're not producing. And that should be after using multiple lists and stuff like that, because if a list sucks, you don't want to fire them and then realize later that list sucked. You want to make sure you know what's causing that, and that'll be in one of the future lessons. We'll talk about how to look at KPIs and stuff like that. So you can target network marketers through Facebook groups, Facebook ads to different network marketers. You can do you can join a network marketing company. just to convince some people, get around the crowd, stuff like that. So yeah, those are some ways to get in the know with network marketers. Just kind of want to get that over. Let me get this smaller so it doesn't look so ugly. There you go. Okay, so number 3 is Indeed.com. I generally use kind of the same ad. I have hired a couple times off of Indeed, but they don't really work out a lot just because they're actually in-office employees. I opened it up in office for a short amount of time. I really didn't like it just because it's a little tougher. You know, I like the virtual lifestyle, like being able to work from my home office, and it just didn't work for me. It's a lot of money each month, and I decided to that wasn't for me. So Indeed I use for that. I can't say that it will work or will not work for a virtual caller. That's up to you. Just expect to pay more hiring somebody on Indeed compared to Upwork, because obviously Indeed is United States. And then your personal network. For me, I was lucky. I have a lot of network marketers in my personal network, and those are the best people to have calling for you. Excuse me. So a few things to keep in mind. Philippines call centers are great. I love them. Right now, and this is actually, this is my strategy. So right now I have one network marketer calling for me and one Upwork VA full-time calling for me. So both of those are getting me a ton of leads right now, but I have an acquisitions guy and we need more leads, because even though we have a bunch of leads, we can always get more, and we can handle probably double or triple the amount right now. Even though the amount we're getting right now is great, and I'm hardly paying anything for marketing. It's a dream come true. So besides direct mail and all that, of course. So call center agencies are great. I actually just got connected with one. They've got 4 agents to put on, and that I'm bringing on. So I'm gonna have 6 total callers. We're gonna be going crazy with leads, and we'll scale back if we need to. But I'm ready to go big. We have the numbers ready. It's all good. For you, maybe you want to start out big already. Maybe you're ready. You have a full team. You can handle it. Get in touch with a Philippines call center agency. There's a lot of telemarketing groups that you can find. A lot of them are on Upwork. A lot of them are on Craigslist. You can literally go into Craigslist, into the Manila, Philippines section, and post job advertisements. It's great. So use call center agencies. Normally, they will be slightly more expensive, maybe around $6 to $7 an hour, but you're getting an organized team that has experience making calls, and that you can count on. It's a lot easier to manage. So you're going to want to interview multiple people over Skype by having them read the script. So read that script that we went through, and you want to listen for is their tonality good? Would you be convinced that they're a legit company? You don't need to be convinced that they're the owner of the company, or even that they're the top sales rep. Just that they're a base level employee working for a legitimate company. As long as you're convinced by that, I would say they're a good candidate. You can't be too picky, because again, a lot of these people are not going to be extremely high end. I don't want to sound rude or anything, but entry level, 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour, and Philippines $4, $5, $6 an hour. You don't need an all-star that you'd pay 25 bucks an hour doing these cold calls. So you got to understand also, Americans are more expensive, but will be better in higher end areas. So if you're in a market like San Francisco, it'll be worth it to call in with an American. So I've got one American and one Philippines VA, and we're hiring a bunch more VAs because we're not really doing the $1 million property areas right now. And when we do, we just have her go on those lists. So another thing is, you can find agents overseas who speak clear English. I mean, I swear to you, this guy that I have working for me right now, he is honestly better at these basic cold calls than I am. I mean, the guy's great, very well spoken, speaks clear English. It's amazing. So keep that in mind. And then it's also best to find a VA who has already worked for a real estate investor. So, for example, my guy actually had already used Mojo. Another guy fired him because he couldn't afford him. So I guess he was just sucking, getting deals, and and he was actually having the VA run the whole business for him. It's kind of silly. He's literally having the VA look at comps, or build the list, call the list, look at comps, make the offer, sell the property. This one VA was handling all that. And no wonder that the dude wasn't making enough money to be committed to the VA. If you're not committed to hire real people or do a lot of it, yourself rather than having a $4 or $5 an hour employee in the Philippines do it for you, then you don't really have a business. It's just insane. So I actually found him. The VA already know how to do everything. It's amazing. And you can find some yourself as well. And if not, it's very easy to train them on Mojo, as you'll see in the future training videos. So keep all of this in mind. This is where to find calling agents. Use them all. Use a combination like I am. That way, if one falls through, you still have multiple other people calling ready to go. So that's why I'm going to have a team of 6. They start tomorrow, actually. Today's Sunday, so they literally start tomorrow for me. So I'll keep you guys updated on how it goes, and that's that. See you guys in the next video. Okay, so we know where to find people. Now, how do we avoid high turnover with those callers that we do hire? Because we don't want to have to every week be hiring new people. That's terrible. So the first thing you have to understand is you will have some turnover. You will have callers quit, and it will happen until you get really good at finding the right people. So for me, now I'm pretty good. My guys are stable. They're coming in every week, hitting calls, hitting their dial amounts, and hitting their goals. And just keep that in mind, though. You will have some people quit, especially if you're dealing with American people. I don't know why, but typically a lot of the American people at the price point we're paying, they're job hoppers. And so we want to figure out a way to keep them around. In Philippines, it's the same, to be honest. It's a lot easier with the agencies and with the Upwork employees, at least from what I've seen. In my experience, it might be different for you. But just understand, you will have some turnover. So number 2 is you're going to offer bonuses for your callers hitting your goals. So I should call this their goals. So for example, for our guys, the Philippines guy, he gets paid $5 an hour, and we'll talk about that, what they get paid. But if he gets 20 leads a week, he gets bumped up to $6 an hour. We have different bonuses as well for my American girl, and we're gonna have different bonuses for the agency that's starting tomorrow. So keep that in mind, and you're going to want to always offer bonuses for hitting goals because it excites people to get results and to have something to chase after. That's why there's so much attention that goes into actually setting goals and having a vision for your future. No matter what sort of person you're hiring, everybody wants goals to chase after, and make them realistic goals that they can hit. If you can't tell someone, yeah, if you get $50 this week, then, or 50 leads this week, then I'll bump you up $1 an hour. No, because there's not a chance in the world that they get 50 leads this week. Maybe once this year they might have 1 week that they get 50. That would suck. So keep that in mind. And then also keep your callers updated on the deals that you get from their leads. So they're going to be excited if they see that their leads are getting results for your company. I don't care who you hire. Everybody wants to see their company making some money. Unless you're just a total D-bag and they don't like you at all, chances are that they want to get you deals and they don't want to feel like they're a waste of money for you. So keep them updated on deals you get. For American people, you might pay them commission. So it's especially important in that situation. The next one is do not try to pay your callers the bare minimum. Okay, this is the one situation where you cannot be a cheapo. And a lot of situations, it's good to be a cheapo to get the best deal, and that's what we train ourselves to do. Do not be a cheapo with your callers. You don't want to pay them $1 million. You don't want to, be paying them $20 an hour, but you don't want to pay them the minimum. So if you're thinking, oh, hey, you pay $5-6 an hour, you idiot, I'm gonna go pay $3-4. Dude, you're going to have trash. They're going to be quitting a lot. They're going to be upset with you because you're probably not offering them bonuses as well. And they're going to come work for someone like me and really perform, who's going to pay them a decent amount. So keep that in mind. And the last one is give your callers the best calling data possible. If they complain about a list and tell you that they're getting in touch with a lot of the tenants and family members and they're not talking to actual sellers, you want to try to test a lot of different lists and try to get them the best one. If they're only connecting with, like, for example, this one, 4% of people, you want to switch them up to a list that is a lot better than that they actually connect with like 10, 12, 15% of the people. So give them the best data. Doesn't always mean spending more money on the data. It just means testing different lists and numbers and figuring out which one works the best. So keep that in mind. All of these will help you avoid high turnover. You will have some turnover, but use all of these, and typically you'll have people who will stick with you for months and months and months, and sometimes even over a year. So keep that in mind. See you guys in the next video. Okay, so being that we do have some turnover and we want to get leads as soon as possible, we want to get this system rolling as soon as possible, you need to know how to quickly train your agents. So this is literally the coolest part about cold calling that you probably wouldn't expect. You can literally plug someone in same day and have them calling your list and get leads. So, and it's all revolves around this standard operating procedure, or SOP. So here I've got an outbound sales SOP. This is basically step by step how somebody is going to go into your Mojo, start calling your lists, and get you leads. So here I put in the link for the login, and you'll have this attachment somewhere on the page to download. You have the PIN. I took out my PIN because obviously I don't want you guys logging into my account. Then you put in the login info for them. And then you put in your Podio web form link, which we talked about in the CRM section, video. So, and then they roll into the steps. So this is literally only one page. Very simple, guys. Very, very simple. They're going to open up their Podio web form for leads. They're going to log into the Mojo dialer. They're going to click that power dialer. And in your situation, you probably are going to want to create a calling profile. They're going to just click that power dialer number or call. They're not going to want to change the caller ID, the voicemail, or the callback. They're going to want to change that number of lines dialing to 3. Make sure that's 3. And then they're going to want to make sure that number of rings is 4 or 5. I do 5 normally now, so I can change that. And they're going to want to make sure that they call the section that says call this list where I left off starting with new leads is selected. We talked about that when we looked at Mojo. And then they're going to select the list on the left-hand side of the screen that they're supposed to be calling. And again, you can set up a calling profile like we talked about in the Mojo section or video. They'll click start dialing. They'll call in with their phone, and they'll begin using the script. So pretty amazing. And then here it just tells them what to do if they're interested in selling. It's basically the script. So pretty amazing, pretty simple, pretty easy, guys. This is literally plug and play for your agents. All they got to do is know how to follow a script and watch a 5-minute video that you create for them on how to pull up Mojo. Doing exactly this, you'll have this SOP, and very easy, no joke, guys. You can literally hire someone tomorrow and have them calling the same day. So keep this in mind when you're thinking, maybe I should wait. It's going to be so hard to train people. No. It's easy. It's all based around this SOP. Excuse me. So yeah, use this to train new people, give it to your new callers, and have them follow it. Very simple, very easy. All right, guys. So I wanted to make this quick video to talk about how to cut your cold calling lead cost in half, because this is literally what I've done in like the past 2 months. So I'm going to drive this home to you. I'm going to literally beat this horse dead until you understand this. I was only stuck on having American callers call for me, and I love my American caller. She's great. She gets leads, good cost per lead, $20-$30 normally. But when I hired a Philippine cold caller for the first time, it was like my life changed. I mean, no kidding. I've literally had like 4 or 5 at a time Phoenix cold callers, and so I've seen how many total leads different types of American cold callers can pull. And I'm telling you, Philippines is the same. As long as you have a very solid person, it's the same amount of leads, if not more, sometimes a little bit less. Again, it just depends on the quality. But your lead cost will be in half. I'm not kidding. Normally I'm around $40 in LA or San Francisco. With my VA, I'm about $17 to $20 cost per lead in LA. It's pretty crazy. So I just wanted to drive that home with you guys. If you want to literally cut your lead cost in half, because you're literally paying half and plus no commissions, which we'll talk about in the compensation lesson that you're about to watch. you have to look into the virtual assistant calling. So keep that in mind, guys. See you in the next video. Okay, so before we move on to the next lesson, I wanted to knock out another quick video for you guys and just summarize the difference between American callers and overseas callers, because this can make a big difference for you. So with American callers, again, one of the main benefits is they're really good in higher end areas. Of course, it depends on who you bring on. So all this is subjective on who you have going for you, and are they good on the phone or not, and if they suck, then they're gonna suck. So just keep that in mind. But generally, American callers will be better than overseas callers if they're talking to, multi-million-dollar property owners. So that's that. But generally, they will be double the price, maybe a little bit more sometimes, than overseas callers. And sometimes, depends on if you know them, if you got them from your personal network, sometimes they could be a little bit more reliable. Now, I've actually noticed inequality in reliability from both. In fact, if anything, the Americans have been a little bit less reliable, because I've literally hired so many people off Indeed that literally just quit after a week. So depends on who you bring on. So that's that. And then the overseas caller, they're really good getting leads. They'll get about the same amount of leads as your American caller. They'll be half the price, but they won't be as good in higher end areas. So generally, if we've got a higher end area, I'll put my American caller there, and the overseas callers will go in the medium to lower, price point areas. So just keep that in mind. I like using both of them. If you can find a good American caller, great. It's a lot easier to hire overseas callers, so that's another plus. And, I would recommend using a mix of both. See you guys in the next video. Okay, so how do you structure paying your callers? Well, this is a very important part, because it's going to be the difference between your caller quitting right away and you paying too much of a cost per lead and not being profitable enough. So you want to pay them that perfect mix. And I've definitely figured out that perfect mix. So for American callers, what I find to work best for me is paying them somewhere around $11 an hour base, and you can track how many hours that they have worked in the report section of Mojo. Very easy to do. Just go into the report section right now if you have a Mojo account. It's easy. Believe me, not rocket science. And you can see how many hours they've called. And then I'll give them a $3 per lead bonus. And actually, before I move on, you can also pay them $35 per 600 dials. So I don't know why it's like that. I actually learned that from one of my good friends who taught me the way he's doing his cold calling, which is a bit different than mine. But he was paying $35 per 600 dials, so you can also do that instead of a per hour base on an American caller. So then on top of that is a $3 per lead bonus plus 3% commission on net profit. And then if they get 20 plus leads in a week, then it gets them $4 per lead. So in 1 week, it'll get them $4 per lead for that week. So this one's for that week as well. So very simple pay structure. It works very well, and this is how I get my cost per lead with an American caller, anywhere from $20 to $40 per lead. This pay structure down here, I'll write that down real quick for you. This is just depending on the competitiveness on the market that we're calling. And this one is anywhere from $10 to $25 per lead. So with an overseas caller, normally start them out at $5 an hour base, and if they get 20 plus leads in a week, we're going to give them $6 an hour for that week. So very simple, guys. Keep that in mind. Easy to do. So if you're paying them $5 an hour, they work 40 hours a week. That's 40 times 5 is what, 8? I don't even know. I'm brain farting. Let me pull up a calculator. All right, guys, so I've been recording a bunch of these lessons right now, so I'm kind of brain dead, but yeah, 40 hours a week at $5 an hour is about $200. And if they get you 20 leads, then you pay them $6 an hour. So that's I'm brain farting again. I have no clue, but let's just say they get you 19 leads. That's somewhere around $10 per lead. So you can see where it gets pretty good, and $20 a lead is not really that different. So you guys have to excuse me. I've been talking for a while recording these videos, so simple math, I really can't do in my head. It's about brain dead right now. But this is how to structure paying your callers, keep them around, keep them motivated, and make sure that you get the best cost per lead possible. All right, in this video, I'm going to be talking about my average cost per lead, my average leads per deal, and my average profit per deal. This is a very important thing to know in your own business, but you've got to remember that your numbers might be a bit different than mine because you might be in a totally different market. You might have a totally different team. It all depends, but this is the rough average of what you can expect to be around. So for me, I've been, and this is for Phoenix and a couple of other markets, but mainly Phoenix. I've been around $24 a lead and 60 leads per deal. Sometimes I've been around 75, and it's actually lowering. I just hired an acquisitions manager not too long ago, and you know, that extra follow-up and help on those leads has really made a difference in that number. So around 60 leads per deal. I do have a couple friends who are more around 50, maybe 45, but 50, 60, 75 is really a safe number. I'd say 75 is probably the safest number. You really suck if you're not converting 1 in 75 or you're not calling back all your leads like I wasn't. And then I'm right around a $22,000 profit per deal for the deals I've gotten from cold calling. You will find that you will get home run deals from cold calling more often than you will from direct mail. Just because, like I said in previous lessons, you're contacting people that have never been contacted before. Especially when, because even the people who are currently cold calling, they're cold calling a lot of different lists with numbers that come from a lot of different vendors. And just the simple fact of that, goes to show that there's so many people to call, so many different phone numbers to call. The chances of you calling the same person as the same seller as another person are very low. I've actually never, I think maybe I've gotten 1 or 2 of the same leads as my friends in the same market doing the same strategy. So these are my numbers. Expect to be around here. I'd say a really safe number if you have a VA is around $20 a lead. This is for an American, a VA and VA mix. It was more around 30, but it has dropped. And it's probably going to drop more around 15 to 20 with the combo, especially now that I'm hiring 4 more VAs. It's probably going to be more around 15. So keep that in mind. And we'll see how these numbers change over the next 6 months to a year, but these are my numbers for the past year of doing this since I started it. Great numbers if you ask me. It's somewhere around $1,400 cost per deal, making $22,000 profit per deal. It's great. Now, keep in mind, there's also some list costs and stuff like that, but I've stayed around 10x profitable with all of my cold calling campaigns in general. So for every $5,000 I've generated, I did $50,000 in the past year. So keep that in mind. Even though this year I took a couple months total break from cold calling or from real estate altogether. Even then, not following up with any leads, doing nothing, still 10x profitable. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that for you. I'm just saying this is my experience, and you've got to track your own numbers, get it going for yourself, and let me know what your results are. So see you guys in the next video. All right, so you have employees now, you've got callers, you have the lists, you know what you're doing. Now, how do you effectively track each caller's progress and what they're bringing in for your company, so you know when to give them bonuses and when to fire them? So a lot of us know that we use scorecards in our business to keep track of everything, which I would highly recommend it. I actually got a version of the scorecard from my buddy Raphael. Thank you so much. I changed it a little bit for my business. I'll also include my scorecard. This is a blank version of it, of course, for you guys, and somewhere on this page as a attachment. So, but this is really the bulk of what we're talking about right here is this section. So for each caller, I have a different section. So Carly is my American caller. She's got one for outbound calls made, outbound interested leads, outbound contracts for that week, that, you know, of contracts we got in the leads that she had generated, and outbound contract value. Same thing for Randy, who's our VA, and same thing for the agency, the 4 agents that we hire. So this is a very quick and easy way to look each week. And I actually meet with my people once every Monday at 10 a.m., my team, and we go over the numbers. And this is a quick and easy way just to look back. You know, as you can see, you know, I cleared it out. It's set for every 7 days. So every Monday, 19th of September, we're looking at their numbers, and they will know that week whether they've improved from the past few weeks, because, you know, you fill this in, and it's now the 3rd of October. They can see how good they did these 2 weeks compared to how they're doing this week. And you can see if they hit their goals. Are they consistently overperforming? Are they consistently underperforming? And how do you need to adjust your deal with them? So again, this just makes it so easy to track everything. Guys, if you do not have a scorecard like this to track your callers, you'll get by. You'll probably make money, but you won't make nearly as much as you could have if you were tracking it. It's going to show discrepancies in what list did they call this week. You know that you put them on that low income list in 85344 zip code, and it sucked. And that's one of the reasons you talk about that in your meeting. So it's just really good to track via the scorecard. I'll put this in as an attachment on the page somewhere. You'll be able to download it and use it in your own business. Maybe you only have one caller. Great. Maybe it's only you. Still track it. Still figure out how many calls you're making to get how many leads, to get how many contracts, and how much money is your company making from that contract value. So see you guys in the next video. All right, now for the long-awaited lesson. My secret lists to call for maximum ROI. The lists that you can call and literally extract deals like clockwork for minimum cost. And guys, I hate to break it to you, but that doesn't actually exist. The best ROI is going to come from whatever list you consistently call. The cool thing about calling is no matter what, you're going to find good deals no matter what list you call, in my experience. So maybe different in your market, but in my experience, even calling the high equity owner-occupant lists, we get deals. So with that in mind, we already talked about all the lists you want to call. We talked about tax defaults, vacants. We talked about absentee owners. Another great absentee owner list is absentee owners with 2 bedrooms or less. So opportunity to add on to those properties. It's great because a lot of those absentee owners, you can give them almost close to market value if there's room in the neighborhood to and on the lot to expand the property. So you got to know your numbers, you got to know your market at that point, but that's another great list to call. But every list works in cold calling, in my experience, to be 100% honest. You know, we've called for lease option deals now. Great response on those lists. Really, every list you call, you'll get a low cost per lead, to be honest. Now, certain lists will come up with more motivated people than other lists. Obviously, you can't just go call every single property in your state. I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to, but it'd definitely be a smaller ROI than calling all the properties that someone's owned for, that people have owned, for 15 years or more. You know, owner occupied or not. So as long as you put some sort of filter on there to make to account for some possible motivation, you're good. You don't need to dive down into the niche divorce and empty nester lists, because, and of course you can do those as well, but to sustain a consistent stream of leads for cold calling marketing part of your business, you're definitely going to want to be calling bigger lists. So keep that in mind, guys. I'm sorry to say it, there's no secret lists. You just need to take action. You need to find somebody to hire. You need to get them started ASAP and make some money. Okay, so now we're going to talk about setting income goals to decide how many callers to bring on, because you don't want to just shoot in the dark. If you only have money for one, just bring on one. If you have money to bring on no agents, then bring on none and call yourself till you can get deals. And once you get a deal or two, hire some agents. But assuming that now at this point you're ready to bring on multiple agents, figure out how much you want to make per month. Let's say our goal is $60,000 per month from the cold calling side. We're getting, let's say, hypothetically, we're getting about $20 cost per lead. So maybe I'm going to give you these numbers on average. So maybe on average, you might be at $20 cost per lead. You might be at 75 leads per deal because your sales process isn't great. You're not a great closer when those leads do come in from your callers. So you're only closing 75 leads per deal, and you're only making $15,000 profit per deal. So we're going to kind of assume the worst here. So these are your numbers, let's pretend. And you want to make 60 grand a month. So to make that, you need about one deal per week. So 15,000 per week, 4 weeks in a month equals 60 grand a month. And to get that one deal per week, you're going to need about 75 leads per week. So if you get on average 15 leads per week per caller, so for example, from Randy, I get 15 leads a week, and Carly, I get 15 leads a week on average. I need 5 callers on to hit that $60K per month. And here's the cool thing. We talked about an agency. So normally agencies can give you anywhere from 2 to 10 agents to call at once, and you can literally just hire those 5 callers with an agency, which I actually might have an agency that you guys can hire. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. I'll add another video at the end of this if they're available. If there's no video about the agency for you guys to use, that means they're not going to work. So you need 5 callers on to hit that 60K per month and get those 75 leads per week. So it's very simple. As you can see, just like direct mail, you need to send 10,000 letters to get X amount of leads, to get X amount of deals, make X amount of money. Here we know we need 15 leads a week. Let's bring on 5 callers, hit that 60K per month. And you'd be spending about $6 grand a month on that and paying your callers. So plus any list costs. So maybe your list cost might be $2 grand. Around $8 grand a month to make 60 grand a month is a great business. I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree. And I'm actually around that 10x return ROI on any money I spend on cold calling. So I'd be closer to 6K all in. My number's a little bit better than this, as you saw. So keep that in mind. Again, this is literally how easy it is to set your income goals and figure out how many callers you need to hire based on your KPIs. Again, cost per lead, leads per deal, and profit per deal, and figure out how many average leads per caller you're getting. And again, you just look at that scorecard I showed you guys. You'll be able to see how many leads on average per week they're getting, and then obviously your cost per lead. So keep that in mind when you're looking at how many people to hire. It's a very simple and quick way to figure out. You're literally planning and buying your income by hiring people to call for you. It's just like wholesaling, sending direct mail, and doing PPC. You're literally advertising for income in a systemizable way, and that's the great thing about cold calling. So just keep that in mind, guys. Set your income goals. Let me know. Maybe send me an email. Let me know your goals and your KPIs, and I'd be happy to shed any light on what I think. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, so now we're going to talk the target stats for your callers, because if you don't know what your callers should be getting stat-wise, KPI-wise, you're not going to know whether they're doing really good or whether they're doing really bad, and you need to fire them. So these are the numbers to really keep in mind when you're judging how good your caller is doing. So for me, I like to see a caller get 1 to 3 leads for every 600 dials, with 1 being really the minimum. If they're anything below that, they're getting 1 lead every 1,000 dials. I'm like, okay, either something's wrong with the list or you just really suck, and you're done. So you want them in between 1 and 3 for every 600 dials. 3 is really the goal that we want to hit, and that means we're doing pretty well. for every $600 that they make. Again, you can see how many dials they make in the reports tab in your Mojo, and you can see the report tab in the the Mojo video where I go over auto dialers. So this is kind of what a report will look like: total calls made, total contacts made, total DNC contacts, and you can see their total time talked or on the phone. This doesn't include, though, you have to realize this doesn't include dialing time. So it only includes time that they were actually connected with people. So actual dialing time was probably closer to maybe 25 or 30 hours for this week that he worked, because I think he had like a family event and he worked part-time that week. So keep that in mind. So 1 to 3 leads for every $600. You want to see a 10% contact ratio, and this is really for you, not for them. This will tell you whether your lists are good or not. So for me, I saw 4% contact ratio, not very good. So with that being said, out of those contacts, you're going to want to see a 5% lead conversion. So for example, 600 dials, we want to actually have him talk to 60 people who actually, own the house. And we want him to convert out of that 60 people 5%, which would be 3 leads. So that's just another way to break down the amount of leads they should be getting for each 600 dials. So keep in mind, 600 dials normally takes anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. Just depends on how many leads they talk to, and if it's more contacts, then it could take a little bit longer for 600 dials. If they're talking to 100 people, it will take longer than if they talk to only 50 people out of those 600 dials. So from there, from those numbers, a full-time caller should be able to hit somewhere around 6,000 dials per week. It's 30 to 50 hours in a week. It's a safe bet. $6,000 per week is a full-time week. I've had my callers have hit 30,000 in 1 month. So that would be an average of around 7,000 a week, maybe a little bit more. And then part-time, you should look at around $3,000 per week. So this is what you should look at for your target stats for your callers. This is how the numbers work out. Just keep these in mind moving forward. And with that being said, guys, I think you're ready to launch your cold calling section. Go out there, go find some callers, follow the strategies that I talk about. Really go out there and take some action, get some leads, get some deals, and email me updates. Let me know how you're doing. Jaelin@precisionpointequity.com. Let me know what's going on. Any questions? We'll be doing some webinars here and there, and you guys will get emails on those. So thank you so much for keeping part in the course. If there's any other modules you want made, send me an email. I'd love to make them for you guys. But I think you've seen enough to where now you can go out and take action, get deals, and build your cold calling section. So guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good night, day, wherever you're at. For me, it's night. Have a good night. Bye-bye, guys.